If this was a conversation that like I was actually talking to one person and we could like converse back and forth, I would probably be less heated, but I am standing alone in my room with a microphone. So all of my emotions are turned up. Hi everyone. Welcome back. It's been a very long time since I've done one of these. I have moved houses. So if this we're, I tried to pick a wall. Here we are. I've missed you guys. How are you doing? My apologies for not being back with one of these. I simply did not have the brain capacity. Okay, 2024 was not nice. I felt like if I was going to come back with a plot summary, I really needed one that I am passionate about. And right now, that is Metal Slinger, which we are going to be covering today. I needed to get this out of my system before I could turn to the finale of the Mortal Instruments plot summaries, which is next on the docket. I promise you, I honestly have to go look. I have to rewatch my own videos to like remember the memes that I use. I need to reintroduce myself to that world. Metal Slinger. So this is my general reminder. If you aren't new to the plot summary videos, I started making these truly, if you read the title, so that you don't have to read these books. That's why I haven't covered books that I love. I only cover books that are buzzed about within the book world, and you might not want to or might not have the time or whatever to read these books, but you still want to get the jokes, get the references, right? These are the kind of books that I'm covering in my plot summary videos. So why do I say you should not read Metal Slinger? This is a poorly written book. And I'm honestly, like, I've read poorly written books before, but this one in particular just really got me so angry because it's going so viral and it's getting 5-star after 5-star after 5-star review. I just wanted to make this so that we could talk about it, and I'm gonna try and make it fun because honestly, it's very memeable because of how stupid it is. So it's gonna be entertaining. I'm gonna try and make the story better than it is. So I re-emphasize, as I have said in my title, I am telling you the plot of this book so that you don't have to read it. I had a girl tag me in one of her reading wrap-ups for a month, and she read The Mortal Instruments and she was like, I hated this. Cari warned me. I was like, yes, I did warn you. So just save yourself time and money. I'm going to go grab my notes and we're just going to dive in. I will say I have a live reading reaction to this if you want to watch that, but basically I was going to DNF this almost immediately. But one of you on Instagram messaged me and you were like, you just wait for the last chapter. And I did. And that is why it's getting 5-star reviews, is simply for the second to last chapter. So if you are bored to tears, skip a little bit. Skip to the end. I'm giving you permission. In we go. Welcome to Metal Slinger. We start this book in the middle of a conversation. The opening line is a fragment. And this is first person, okay? We are in our main character, Brynn's POV the entire time. Very important to remember. We are in her head. We have all of her thoughts. We'll get into it. For me to tell the story, I'm going to be saying, Brynn says this, Brynn says that, but the story reads as, I did this, I did that, I thought this, I thought that, okay? Cool. Let me just read you the first few sentences. If there's a way, I say, confirming the plan. Kai dips his head yes in a nod. Yes, but no one goes alone. He turns to look at Messer. Agreed. Messer is the cocky side character, FYI. Every fantasy needs one. He's ours, okay? Obnoxious. No hate to Heath Ledger. I just ran out of blonde, hot people. Okay? Another thing that all fantasies apparently need is a redheaded protagonist. Yes, Brynn, our Brynn, is a redhead with her copper hair. Everyone else where she lives has blonde hair and gray eyes. She has gray eyes, but red hair. And it's unruly, can never stay in a braid. This is where we learn that they are on a ship filled with their classmates, and everyone is super excited to see this like strip of land out on the horizon that they're getting closer to. And we learned that they are headed to the market, capital M, okay, the market, which only happens once a year. And the reason this is so special is there's only 2 types of people from where they are from. They are the alaha people. Only 2 types of people from alaha get to go. Number 1 is the people who help with the trading aspect of the market. Apparently they bring along merchants. It's unclear. And also the graduating class of trainees for their like military or their guard. You will find that the world building is really lacking. So if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, it's because I don't know what I'm talking about. So we have Brynn, Kai, and Messer who are about to graduate from their program becoming guards of Alaha. And she says something interesting. She says the reason why people are so excited about this honor of going to the market is because, quote, for some of us, it could be decades before ever seeing dry land again, if ever at all. And this is where I'm going to quickly bring up the back of the book, or the Goodreads summary of this book. As I was doing my reading reaction, I read that before going into this book, and they mentioned that they live over the sea compared to this market, wherever the market is. And to me, that sounds like over yonder, like over the sea, like across the sea. You'll find out. But anyway, they're very excited to see land, and they continue to talk about this plan, which we have no idea what the plan is, but everyone is going to stick together and we're going to assess the situation. Okay? We also learned that Messer invites someone named Aurora, and immediately Brynn and Kai groan. Apparently we don't like Aurora. But regardless, we finally get close enough to land for a description, and I can only picture
the cliffs of insanity!
From The Princess Bride. It's just like this tiny piece of land where the market is, and then on both sides it's just cliff. Looks like somebody took like an axe to the middle of it, and there's just this tiny little piece of land for the market, and that's where they're headed. Brynn tells us that this market is the only neutral meeting place between Alaha, these guys, and the people of Kenta. She says, I've spent my entire life waiting for this day. I was convinced that land dwellers were a myth, as evidenced. I can't even read my own quotes that I wrote down. I've spent my entire life waiting for this day. I was convinced that land dwellers were a myth, but as evidenced by the bustling pier, they most definitely are not. These Kenta people are possibly the most beautiful living beings I've ever seen. Judging by the murmuring of my fellow classmates, they're as odd as I am. But before we get swept off our feet and onto land, we of course have their instructor, leader, who grumbles, quote, don't let them fool you. They are as ruthless as the giant squids. This is and isn't important, so I'm going to add it in. But basically, there are rumors of giant squids. No one's ever seen them. But it seems like in Alaha, their main source of food comes from fishing, and they've had quite a few disappearances recently of fishing boats just coming back. Either not coming back at all or coming back empty. People believe that it is the giant squids. But again, that's just a rumor. And Brynn is sort of like, they don't really look like squids. They look kind of hot. She also says they don't even look like people who could beat us. Because Kenta and Alaha, the reason that this is the only piece of neutral land that they can meet on is because there was a big war. Kenta beat the Alaha and sent them on their merry way to live again over the ocean. Whatever that means. So they disembark, they get the rules, all right? Ungermeyer is basically like, you gotta stay in groups of at least 2, but no more than 3. Stick together, don't get in trouble, don't cause anything that could mess with the peace treaty. Okay? Everybody gets a couple copper coins, and they're sent off to the market. Things we learn very quickly that become very important in this book is that Messer can charm the pants off of anyone he meets. Okay, he immediately zeroes in on, I think it's like a cake shop or a chocolate shop. Even though the Kenta and the Alaha are supposed to be mortal enemies, he immediately just literally charms the face off of this cake seller woman. And so the vibes are pretty good. It seems like maybe we aren't going to cause an international incident. We also learned that Kai is the son of the captain. Captain's name is Wren. That's his daddy. And he is the highest ranking person of Alaha. So Kai is kind of the unofficial official leader of this graduating class. And he mentioned something about how he's the first relative of Wren to visit the market. And so that's a big step in the peace treaty, which is a question I have, because if you are going to win a war, banish these people, the losers, okay, Alaha, banish them with, quote, only their clothes on their backs and a few ships to get to their new place. Why are you allowing them to build a military? For someone, as we will see in this entire book, they are still controlling how much food this country gets. these people get. Like, they are under such strict control, and yet they're allowed, it seems like that's their only industry, like that's the thing that you do, is you either like are a fisherman or you're in their military. And it's like, who in Kenta is letting that happen, right? If they're like such strict controlling people, I feel like I would let them grow their own food before I would let them have their own military. You know, it just doesn't. All right. Anyway, my next favorite thing that we learn is that Brynn's catchphrase is "dang rabbits." She says it a lot in the beginning of this book, and then she just drops it. So, but yeah, she says "dang rabbits" for anything. Like, instead of "dag nabbit," you know? She's not like the other girls. I could keep a list of not like, she's got a weird catchphrase. She's got unruly red hair, unlike anyone else literally in her world. Now, we're still looking for something. Us as the reader, we still have no idea what their plan is. It doesn't seem like they're really in a rush. They're just like looking at stuff, walking around, and all of a sudden they find some dancers. And Kai turns to Brynn and is like, "You ready for the romantic subplot to start?" Brynn is like, "I thought we were gonna maybe like look at the cliffs, you know? Like, it seems like they're maybe trying to find a way to climb the cliffs." And Kai is like, no. We're gonna dance. And this is weird for Kai to ask, because apparently Alaha has very strict courting rules, and you actually aren't allowed to be physically intimate with anyone before your matching ceremony, which hasn't happened yet for them. So they should not be dancing.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't.
And Brynn is sort of like, what are you doing, buddy? And also, if you're curious about the matching ceremony, apparently marriages in Alaha are more political, and they're used to, quote, monitor bloodlines and control overpopulation. So like, it's a small community, so they like want to make sure there's not too much inbreeding. All right. But Kai is like, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to report us. We're just like fitting in with the locals, you know? And he says, "Hey," drawing my chin up with a finger, "it's just you and me." So we understand that there's some kind of camaraderie or relationship already between Brynn and Kai, and there seems to be some tension, you know, going on. They dance a little bit. They talk about how they were stupid kids together. They seem to have known each other their entire lives. When he leans in, I'm not expecting the words that leave his mouth next. He says, "I asked my parents for permission to choose you at the matching ceremony." And this stops Brynn in her tracks. She says, "I've never allowed myself to entertain the idea of ever getting a match. I have no family, no dowry. I'm at the bottom of the list," because Kai basically has his pick of every girl. He's like the youngest, hottest, most eligible bachelor in Alaha, okay? And so her response to his marriage proposal essentially is like, there's no way that the leader of Alaha is going to get married to an urchin. She calls herself an urchin so many times in this book because she's like orphaned. She likes the word urchin to refer to herself. But Kai is like, no, you don't understand. Urchin you may be, but you are also smart, hardworking, and so God's damn beautiful. She like shakes her head in a daze and she's like, "Is this real?" And Kai says, with his gaze deadly serious, "Do you want it to be?" And this is where the conversation gets really weird, because she seems to be elated. Like, this is what she would have wanted, right? Like, Kai has been her best friend, possibly more, since childhood. He respects her. Everyone respects him. Like, he seems like a pretty good guy, blah, blah, blah. She's like, "Oh my God, is this real? Am I dreaming? This is great." And then she all of a sudden is like, "How dare you?" And Kai is like, "Pardon?" She is like, "This is the one day I get to go to the market and you're gonna make it all about you?" She's literally like, "This is a really important day for me. How could you ruin it by asking me to marry you?" Guys, it doesn't even make sense later in the book. She's just really pissed that, like, of all days, today, she shoves him multiple times. They get in like a little pushing match on the dance floor, and he finally backs off and he's like, "Brynn." I stop him with an upturned hand. He opens his mouth again, but I don't hear whatever it is he has to say, because I turn away, hurrying through the crowd to outrun the weight of all the eyes on me.
How do you like that?
I just don't get it. But she needed a reason to run and separate herself from the group, so here we are. She runs deeper into the market. We get another point added to her not like the other girls tally, which is she loves the smell of Just Before It Rains. The people who are like, I really love petrichor. It's like, everyone loves petrichor. Everyone loves petrichor. She decides that she's gonna browse the market. Like, she's just gonna cool off. She's gonna look at the other stalls, whatever. When she notices someone following her. The first time she saw him, quote, their eyes connected for a moment. I registered a lot in the brief flash of time. The way he stood with his arms folded over his chest. How his smile dimmed when he saw me. He's got dark hair, dark eyes, and a gold ring in one nostril. He also has, this is, by the way, sorry, at one point she calls him a pirate. I just couldn't get my brains off of Orlando Bloom. So here we go. Orlando Bloom with a nose ring, with lips that I somehow know often say crude things. Anyway, so she continues to try to look normal when she finally finds Messer and Kai, like across the way. They're like searching everywhere for her. Trailing behind them is Aurora, who is just kind of like, she's got a cup of something, just like having a great time, not worried whatsoever. And she manages to catch their eyes. So like she knows that she at least has friends back up within reach, sort of. So she decides to stop at this one stall selling sea glass. She's like, wow, that's really pretty. And the vendor is like, thank you, I know. And then she turns to leave. All of a sudden, a hand grips her shoulder and someone says, you thief. Brynn, of course, is like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't take anything. And the man pulls out a rock from like, I don't fucking know, behind her ear, whatever. He's like, what about this? I gasp. You put it there. Her and Pirate Man go back and forth. It doesn't honestly seem like a big deal. Like, even the person who is selling the thing that she allegedly stole is like, I have no dog in this fight. Like, I don't really care. He just seems to be like making a big fuss. He decides that he's gonna punish her. He's like, what's the punishment for stealing? Let's see. An eye for an eye. I'm just gonna chop off your hand. It escalates so quickly, like she just has, even if she stole the thing, again, no one's asking to press charges, and she needs her hand taken off. But he decides instead of taking her hand off, he's gonna make her touch the wall.
The cliffs of insanity!
He's like, I want you to touch the cliff. And she's like, pardon? He's like, touch the cliff. Everyone is sort of like, a crowd has gathered and everyone's just kind of looking at him like, what the fuck is going on? And he decides that he doesn't want to be arguing with her anymore. So he just takes her hand and is like, quote, pain, unlike anything I've ever felt before, lances through my body. It's like a live current, similar to the electric eels found in the coral outside of Alaha, but times 1,000. Everything that goes through this girl's head, I'm like, you just got sidetracked, like telling us about, oh, the lovely coral that surrounds Alaha, when you're in the most pain you've ever been. Anyway, she blacks out for a second. The guy is like holding her to the cliff and she just like is gone. The pain is so much. She awakens to find herself on her knees. So she must have like fully passed out and he just like let her slump to the ground. But she has just enough time to take a look at him. Look at this pirate. And what is on his face? Apparently, he looks as stunned as Brynn feels. What was he expecting to... Okay. Anyway, pretty immediately, huge fight breaks out. Kai is like, what the fuck did you do? Don't touch my woman who doesn't want to be my woman. Chaos. Messer loves a fight, loves jumping in, as we will see. They make a break for it. They start running for the boat. How are we going to get these? It seems like hundreds of people. I mean, there's so little detail in this book that like how many people are in their graduating class plus all of the merchants for the market, unclear. So I don't know how many people they brought, but like, how are we supposed to get all of your people onto the boat fast enough? Anyway, they run for the boat. Where's Aurora? You may ask? An explosion rocks the dock, sending everyone to the ground. Silence rings for a long moment before I'm able to get my bearings. Messer gets up and he's like, wow, we fucked up. We gotta get out of here ASAP. I'm gonna go find Aurora. But he stops mid-sentence because she appears from the plume of smoke, still with that same cup of whatever juice she's sipping. And she's like,
You gotta be fucking kidding me. Why the hell is she still alive?
And she just like walks onto the boat. She's like, oh, figured we needed a head start. Aurora might be my favorite character in the book, and by the way, take a good look because we just drop characters like flies in this book. Yeah, so Girly bombs the market, they get on the boat and somehow zip away. And as they sail away, Brynn realizes that they have truly fucked up a century of trade and peace. And Brynn realizes her fist is still clenched, and when she looks down, she finds that the soldier's blade is tightly in her hands. So while they were fighting and he was like manhandling her, she grabbed his little dagger thing. And oops, she still got it. The whispers stop as soon as I enter the hull of the ship. Brynn goes below deck. The vibes are not good. So pages 1 through 10, we are only on page 25. Pages 1 through 10 were us being really excited and just like, oh my God, we're so lucky to go to the market. Vibes are great. Everyone's excited. This is wonderful. Page 25, people are quiet and not feeling good. We are going home with very, very different feelings. Understood. That could be picked up, okay? In 25 pages, I didn't forget that we started this book off excited for land, but she uses the phrase, and she uses this multiple times. She tells us that something is in complete juxtaposition. She says, the journey home is in complete juxtaposition to the boisterous and animated atmosphere of the crew on the way there. She doesn't let us notice that juxtaposition. She literally uses the phrase in complete juxtaposition to. That's just annoying, for lack of a better word. So yeah, we're on this quiet ship where everybody's mad, and Brynn is honestly used to people being pissed off at her. She is bullied a lot, partially because she is a quote-unquote urchin, partially because she's a girl and there's only like 3 girls, and also maybe because she's has a little bit of favoritism, maybe. People apparently drop fish stew on her all the time. This time, she tries to get into her little bunk in the ship, and a rat scurries out because somebody put a bunch of corn in her bed. Also, I swear, all my nitpicking is in the very beginning. I'm really sorry, but we also don't know how much time has passed, right? So like, let's say chapter 3. Chapter 3 ends with them standing on the deck of the boat, pulling away from this disaster that they created. Chapter number 4 starts with Brynn coming down into the boat, and the vibes are not good. To me, that seems like that could be just the next 10 minutes, right? Weeks had passed at that point. There's a lot of that where there's no indication of a time jump, like nobody's personalities change, nothing in the plot really moves forward. She just tells us like, by the way, like weeks have passed. And you're like, what? And she's on that boat for 6 weeks. This is mentioned multiple times. It takes 6 weeks to sail between Kenta and Alaha. I looked it up for fun. Sailing from California to Japan takes 4 weeks. So they're sailing further, like crossing the full Pacific Ocean, which raises a lot of questions for later plot points. But yeah, so 6 weeks now have passed. A month and a half. All right, we get to Alaha, this mysterious land, quote, over the sea. What does this mean? It means that they live on a mangrove. Essentially, it's an island without land. It's a collection of trees. Think Avatar 2. I guess. Anyway, first order of business, the people who caused all the hubbub have to go talk to the captain, dear old dad. When they get there, like no questions asked, Aurora just gets put in handcuffs because they're like, listen, you guys threw punches and like maybe stole something, right? We don't know about Brynn. Aurora, you straight up blew things up. No walking that back. So off she trots to the dungeons. And then we get introduced to Kai's whole family. We got a typical kind of military dad, like tough, demands only the best from Kai because he's going to be the next leader, blah, blah, blah. But like seems loving, I guess. His mom is very much like the overprotective, lovey-dovey mom. Like she's just so full of love for her son and like, oh my God, my baby's back, blah, blah. Seems fine. Seems normal. Her parents, remember, helped raise Brynn because, again, she was this orphan. They've known each other since they were kids. They're kind of like second parents a little bit to her. So, of course, the mom is like, Brynn, I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're safe, blah, blah, blah. We're not feeling too terrified about this meeting. This doesn't seem like the 3 of them are going to be thrown in any kind of actual danger. They get to tell their side of the story. And Captain Wren is sort of like, yeah, okay, all that tracks. One question, though, Brynn, why were you alone? What's up with that? And before Brynn can even answer, Kai is like, she ran off because I asked her to marry me. And Brynn is just like, she's like, you piece of shit, throwing me under the bus like that. Like, she didn't, now she's got to tell mom and dad, like, right? Like, these two people that she really loves, that like, oh, by the way, I kind of don't want to marry your son. But also she does want to marry her son. Oh, Jesus Christ. She basically is just like, respectfully, I need some time to process. The captain is just like, ugh, this is young people drama. I just couldn't give a shit, okay? And then he changes the subject. Like, this happens a lot where we are in the middle of a conversation and then a character will just like change the subject so rapidly, it never feels like a natural conversation. It just feels like, oh, we need to say this to get to the next plot point. So he's like, okay, now that we're done with that drama, I have something to tell you. He says, I'm going to tell you something that stays between us. He says, we think Aurora is part of a small uprising and that she had the bomb idea all along. It wasn't just a tactic to help them get away. Aurora was going to bomb Kenta regardless. All right. In order to keep the peace treaty between Kenta, they're demanding that the Alaha turn over the two perpetrators in the attack. Who would those be? Obviously Aurora, but also Brynn. They need to get sent to Kenta. He's like, listen, I've got no problem turning over Aurora. Never liked that girl. Annoying as hell. But I do have an issue with sending Brynn, because if she's the fiance of my son, which again, Brynn is like, I didn't say yes. Didn't say yes. He's like, yeah, I'm not sending the fiance of my son into enemy territory. So what are we gonna do, guys? Putting me in a right pickle. He also says, by the way, part of the deal, like the whole exchanging of prisoners, is that we're not gonna do the market every year. We're gonna do it every 2 years, which is apparently the only time they get food. Remember how I said that Kenta controls their food supply because they live in the middle of trees, in the middle of something bigger than the Pacific Ocean? They're going to punish us by only giving us food every 2 years. And so Brynn's reaction to that story is, holy shit, Alaha's going to starve. And Ren's reaction to that story is, holy shit, I've got to plan a wedding. So not a care in the world about whether or not Brynn said yes. Meeting adjourned. After that, remember, Brynn has been at sea for 6 weeks, so she finally drags herself back to her apartment, which is apparently at like the uppermost level of the trees. So again, I'm thinking Tarzan, I'm thinking Avatar 2, but she is like up. Finally makes it there, takes a shower, passes out. Again, not like the other girls. Her one hobby is that she sketches, okay? So she grabs her sketchbook, goes out on her rooftop, and she is joined by Bird. Bird is not given a name, but there's just this black bird that hangs around all the time on her rooftop. And her neighbor named Grenadine pops her head out and she's like, your fucking bird is back, like blah blah blah. She's just like a grouchy lady, and like anytime Brynn makes any noise, she sticks her head out and is like, hey, you're bothering me. Brynn gives her like a couple pennies and is like, please shut up, old lady, go away. And she does. So Brynn and Bird just sit out looking out over their city, doodling, and Brynn wants to draw something. She can't get this thing out of her mind. She wants to draw something that she was too afraid to draw on the ship where they're in close quarters. And what did she want to draw? Soldier Man's face. Just can't get it off of her mind, and she wants it on paper. So she's workshopping that. She really can't get his eyes right. She is now inside her apartment drawing, and Kai climbs in the window. Unclear of how that's possible, but there we go. And it's basically we've got to have it out, Joe. We've got to have it out. Brynn is sort of freaking out about this whole thing because according to her, if they don't turn her in as part of the deal, they're not going to get the annual trading, right? So that's kind of the deal. So if she stays here and marries him, all of Alaha is going to starve, okay? And she like doesn't want that guilt on her shoulders, understandably, but all Kai hears is, you don't want to marry me? That's all I'm hearing. And she says, this wasn't part of the plan anyway. I wasn't going to marry you. And Kai is like, the plan stays the same, but this time we just get to be together. Yay. Like, again, what plan? What plan? Brynn, he leans in for a little smooch. Apparently they've been kissing for years, okay? Like, we know that they've been friends since they were little, but apparently they've been sneaking off into, like dark corners to have a little in the dark. Remember, we are not supposed to touch before you get married or something. This has been going down for years. And apparently he was kind of like in charge of that, because she says that she was never sure when he would come and kiss her again. Basically, like, it wasn't consistent or spoken about. Like, she was always really scared of getting caught, so it was basically like Kai always made the first move, and she, like, they never really talked about it again. Like, it just happened, and then it was like not safe to talk about. So I don't know, weird relationship, but like they seem to both really like each other. But apparently he's never kissed her like this right now, okay? She says, if I had an inkling of an idea how good this would feel. An inkling of an idea. If I had an inkling of an idea how good this would feel, there would have never been any answer but yes when he asked me to marry him. A kiss so good, she doesn't give a shit about the starving children anymore. Yes, so Kai gives her like a end of a romance movie kind of kiss. She's like, oh yeah, damn, starvation? Our whole people subsisting on 1 year's worth of food for 2 years? Sounds good. I like these. Kiss me again. We get a training scene because, again, their entire world revolves around the military. And Wren pops up, Captain Wren, and he's like, listen, it's almost graduation. We gotta pick who are our captains. We wanna set the hierarchy ASAP, okay? So Messer, front and center, I want you to fight so-and-so. Okay? He fights whoever Wren tells him to, and he obviously wins. So Wren is like, congratulations, Messer, you've just proven yourself. You get to be commander or whatever. And Messer is like, respectfully, sir, if I'm gonna win, I want to beat the best. Kai gives Brynn his sword, which is like, scandal. It's very rare to share your sword, so she must be really special to Kai. But anyway, Brynn and Messer fight. Messer is like, hey babe, like, I'm gonna win, but like, I would like to win. You know, it's only fair. You are the second best, okay? And sure enough, they have a really good fight, but Messer does win. But Kai is so proud of Brynn for fighting so well, and he's so proud that she's his match that he kisses her in front of everyone, which is not allowed. But remember, Kai's kisses are so good. Brynn is like, any kind of punishment that comes from this is worth it. The next chapter, it wasn't worth it. So they're technically engaged, right? Like, we have been over this a million times. They're engaged now, but there still hasn't been the official matching ceremony, so they're not supposed to touch. And so Daddy Dearest throws them both in jail for the night. In the brig. So Brynn spends the night sleeping in jail, and when she's finally allowed to go home, she just goes back to her apartment and starts sketching again. Literally all this girl does is either draw or fight. Draw or fight. So there she is, trying to capture the soldier's eyes once again. And she feels like she's just about to get it right when she hears an alarm from the watchtower. And the alarm that is sounding is the alarm they use for incoming. She manages to get over to the watchtower pretty quickly. She does, like, it, the way that it's described is literally like Tarzan. Like, she's able to like jump over these branches in such a way. Also, this mangrove is apparently huge. It takes her like 2 hours to climb from one end to the other. So keep that in mind, I guess, for future scenes. But anyway, she gets to the watchtower, and what is incoming? This tiny little dinghy. I guess there's like a Kenta ship further out, but there's just one dude sitting in this tiny little rowboat coming up to the mangrove. Lucky for us, he sends out a flare that is the color of I come in peace. The light of that flare catches his face, and who do you think is in that little dinghy?
Soldier boy, tell.
Hi there.
She's technically not allowed to be there. Like, that signal wasn't for her. I don't know. So Kai is basically like, girl, get the fuck out of here. So she finds a way to hide but still see everything that's going on. Brynn, once she realizes who it is like, fuck. Because you know what she still has? His dagger. She was accused of stealing things, and even though she didn't steal the thing that she was accused of stealing, she did technically take his knife. And it must be really sentimental. She looks at it. It's got like this engraving on the handle with a J on it. And she's like, damn, this must be a really important knife if he sailed a month and a half to come get it. But it seems like this is just the beginning of trouble, because even though he said that he comes in peace, they like drag him off of the boat into this like holding cell. It seems like their prison is just an open air, like multiple cages kind of like people can just look at. Once again, no description in this book. I have no idea what anything looks like. So somehow she's able to just like peer into the prison. Our soldier leans in to whisper something to Kai.
Oh my God, what did he just say to you? That if you don't do well, you're gonna get fired?
Worse. He mumbled and I didn't hear it.
Kai snaps back, punches him right in the face, and he just gets beat up. And the soldier is like cracking up. He's having the time of his life, being beaten up by all of these blonde men. Like Kai's at him, Rent, like all of these soldiers are just welcoming him to Alaha. Cut to 3 days later. We're back in the training ring. Nobody's really said anything about the soldier. So Captain Wren all of a sudden approaches Brynn at the training ring, and he's like, listen, girl, you're not in trouble. I mean, you're kind of in trouble, but like, you're not super in trouble, but I need you to come to jail with me. She's like, I beg your pardon? Apparently, the soldier has been sitting in jail for 3 days, refusing to speak to anyone but Brynn. So off she trots. It's like she's not, that wasn't a request, right? Like she's not able to say no. So she gets to the jail. Kai is there. He's like, don't worry, you're not going in alone. And when they walk into his cell, they step into filth. Like, I don't know what this guy was up to in 3 days, but it is like he is leaking like blood and pus. Like he's not doing really good. He stinks. Like it's, yeah. Okay, it's an assault to all the senses. And because this is a romantasy, and I feel like romantasy authors love to overuse our ability to smell things. They kind of exaggerate our sense of smell. His first question, the soldier, is not directed towards Brynn, which is weird because he has not talked, because he only wants to talk to Brynn. But he addresses Kai instead, and he asks, why was her scent covering this cell? Brynn is like, what? Because remember, the night before he showed up, they both spent the night in jail because of their whole like kissing public PDA fiasco. Apparently, like she stayed in that cell and he could smell her, and he is upset. Anyway, Brynn asks the one question that she has been told to ask, which is, where is the like larger Kenta ship hiding that you clearly came from, because you did not just cross the ocean in that dinghy by yourself? And he immediately is like, oh yeah, it's over there, that way. And she's like, thank you, and they leave. But when he says bye, Brynn, he says it, quote, in a way that gives me the feeling he's not finished. But surprise, surprise, it is actually Brynn who is not finished with him, because this whole thing goes down. She goes back to her apartment, is like, that was weird, and then hikes, climbs, whatever, the 2 hours back to the jail to have another chat with him. Somehow she can just like sneak in. It seems like it's open. Walks into the cell and finds the most devastatingly handsome man she's ever seen. His eyes are swollen shut, by the way. Again, leaking pus. And he's still... The swollen eyes immediately open. There shouldn't be any way he can see me, but his gaze seemed to land on my exact position. Look who it is, he says. The little thief herself. They start poking each other. This is where we get massive, not world building dumps, but like lore dumps. Our soldier is just an open book. He doesn't play around with giving information. You know how like some people will hide things? Well, all right, to a point. He's very much like, listen, we've got a lot of ground to cover in this book. I'm going to tell you right away why I'm here and who you are and what's going on and blah, blah, blah. So thank you, soldier man. He says, you don't look like a Brynn. This is when we learn that his name is Acker, which means something in German. I had so many German people in my comments being like, what the fuck are the names in this book? Messer means like farm or knife. Anyway, interesting choices of names. So yeah, his name is Acker, and he mentions that like her boy, aka Kai, is different when she's not around. And she's like, what? I'm his betrothed. I don't expect him to be like nasty, mean around me, but around you, yeah, that tracks. And he just says, that guy certainly doesn't treat you like someone he loves. He's like, if you're the fiance of the highest, this like second highest ranking person in this village, why were you in jail last night? You know, like, so she's like, actually, buddy, I deserved that one. And he smiles and says, oh, no, that's not what I'm referring to. And then he just goes, but tell me, Brynn, what do you remember of your childhood? So yeah, this is Brynn's story. Okay. She, remember, calls herself an urchin, but it's really, she was orphaned at the age of 7 because her family went out for like a fishing trip. And when the boat came back to shore, she was the only one left in it. She doesn't remember anything prior to that. And she says that it's assumed that her parents forgot to correctly drop the anchor or something. So they like went spearfishing, like jumped off the boat, went spearfishing. And then by the time they came up for air, the boat was gone. I don't know. Nobody really knows. But what happens is she gets back. She's orphaned. Kai's family takes her in, raises her as their own alongside Kai. And Brynn's first real memory is Kai's mom, whose name is Feline. Kai's mom just holding her lovingly, and like she's felt nothing but love and support from that family ever since. This is when Acker mentions that the only way that Wren allowed him to talk to her when she came in was if he took a blood oath to make him promise that he couldn't talk about certain things. So he's like, listen, Brynn, if we want to have a nice conversation, you're going to have to get really good at asking questions because I want to tell you some stuff, but I physically can't. And Brynn is like, blood oaths are a myth. Like Kai and I did it all the time. Like we basically would prick our fingers and swear to do something silly because with a blood oath, it's like if you break the promise, you die. And they're both still alive and well. She was like, that's just something stupid that kids do, you know? And Acker's like, well, that's easy. It's because you didn't use any dirt. And Brynn is like, dirt? Brynn is like, yeah, of course we didn't use any dirt. Look around. Do you see dirt anywhere? They're on an island that isn't an island. They have no land. Okay? She's like, what do you mean dirt? Acker just gives her like a look. And somehow Brynn is like, oh, you mean Captain Wren has his own private supply of dirt? First of all, what is going on with the dirt? What? And second of all, how do you just be suddenly like, there's no dirt on this island? Oh, I see. There must be a hidden like, okay. And then we just skip right over to, by the way, I'm really glad that Kai decided to protect you from me and like accompany you while we had our little meeting. I wanted to see it in person. And Brynn is like, what do you mean? And he cuts her off and he's like, do you like him or do you love him? The dialogue in this book drives me insane. Like, I think it would be such an interesting audiobook experience because the conversation does not sound like two humans talking to each other whatsoever. Okay? So he's just like bopping around to all these different weird points. So just like, bear with me, okay? She's like, yeah, I love him. He's my good friend. And Acker's like, ouch. He's my good friend. Oh my God, he's your fiance, girl. Get it together. He says, if my match called me a close friend, I would probably throw myself off a building. And she's like, okay, tell me about your match. Quote, his smile fades into something sadder. She has beautiful eyes, he said softly, like he's lost to memory. They're brown and green and amber, like every color of every season. I've looked everywhere for eyes like hers, and nothing has ever been able to compare. And Brynn is like, okay, way to kill the vibe, man. Like, what? She was like, can we go back to like the fight flirting? Because that's where I felt most comfortable. And he also adds, you realize you're not attracted at all to your fiance, right? Like, you're aware? So Brynn really feels like she has like a winning trick up her sleeve. She's like, do you know why I was in jail that night that you smelled me? Yeah, because we were kissing, Kissing, in public. Yeah. I just don't think that had the effect that she thought it was going to have because Acker's like, they threw you in jail because you kissed your fiance. Right. Brynn is like, listen, you just don't understand my culture. The captain's a really nice guy. His family's been so nice to me. To which Acker is like, yeah, your family. Yeah, did you see your parents' dead bodies or what? To which Brynn is like, Brynn is literally speechless. And Acker is just like, girl, let me help you. You need to start asking better questions. Remember, I have like this weird blood oath thing where I can't talk about certain things. I'm trying to help you. If you haven't noticed, by my complete lack of showing any kind of care or help, by the way, like, how is she supposed to understand that Acker's on her side? I don't know. But he's like, listen, I accused you of stealing because I was trying to help you. I put you in the most extreme pain you've ever felt in your entire life and then let you run away because I was trying to help you. There's no logic in this book. Just letting you know that right now. Brynn is like, danger from who? And apparently that is like part of the thing that he can't say, okay? When she notices that the waves are getting higher and higher. So like I said, the jail is like hanging from a tree, and so the water can like get into the jail cell. I don't know. She says, the waves are coming in faster now. The tide rising with the moon. But then like the next paragraph, she's like, I need to leave because she needs to swim away from the jail without being seen, and it's 1 hour till dawn. Whatever. Time, you will find, does not exist in this book. Before she dips, she thinks about everything that he said in this conversation, which is scattered bits of nothing, to be honest. Like, if that was an actual conversation I had with a human being, I would be walking away from it being like, has this person ever communicated with another human before in their lives? Like, the words on the page, that conversation doesn't make sense. Okay, but she somehow feels like he is insinuating something about her childhood. She says, he's insinuating something big. I swallow past the lump in my throat because I'm not alaha. I didn't need him to tell me. I've known for a very long time. The feeling of other I've held in a secret place inside of me. So she is like aware that she's not, I mean, she's the only redhead in an entire group of people that are blonde. So she's like, I got a feeling that I'm not fitting in. And she assumes that like he has more information about that. But before he can tell her anything else, she's like, I'm done. And she leaves. And just to scrub any connection between her and the soldier, she tosses that dagger into the deep blue sea. If he sailed for a month and a half to get his little knife back, shit out of luck, Acker. Sorry to tell you, it's gone. Our next scene takes place at graduation. Remember, they were all like the group of soon-to-be graduating trainees. So she gets to shake everybody's hand. She's a guard now. But the actual ceremony is a little messy because there is a big storm coming. To which Kai warns Brynn, it's gonna be a doozy. When he said that, I just can't get over. I personally use the word doozy a lot because I think it's a funny word. But like, Kai is supposed to be this really serious, strong, swoon-worthy romantic character. And he's like, that storm's gonna be a doozy. Anyway, I don't know why I got held up on that. But this doozy of a storm is going to be a problem because remember how I said the jail is kind of hanging above the waves? Yeah, so if a big storm comes and you're in a cage, so all she can think about is anybody gonna go get apparently the only person in jail, okay? The only person in the brig is Acker. She's like, do we like have a plan for that guy over there? And Kai's basically like, yeah, my dad just told the guards to like not bother. If the waves get too high, just go home. Which again, like, this is a soldier from the country that controls your food supply. And he seemed like really freaked out in the beginning about like, we gotta hand over Aurora, we gotta do all this. Also, where's Aurora? Is she in jail? Is nobody worried that Aurora's gonna die? Like, they put her in shackles and just like hoisted her off somewhere. So anyway, but apparently Acker's probably gonna die tonight. But Brynn's not about this. She thinks it's a waste for him to die because they haven't really figured out why he even came. Like, it's a mystery as to why he's here, and Brynn wants that mystery solved. At one point, Acker claimed that he was coming to apologize for what went down at the market, but no, he didn't. When has he said sorry? Like, no, you did not. So she's like walking home, getting ready to like board up the windows, whatever, when she just kind of stops in her tracks and she's like, no, that'd be silly. No, there's no way I could hide him in my apartment. She like stops in her tracks, turns around to face the direction of the jail, and she just goes, dang rabbits. Long story short, she gets to the jail. The island is in chaos, right? They're locking everything up. Nobody's around. She can just like walk into the jail, apparently. And she didn't seem to think about the fact that he is in jail, so she would have to open his cell door. So she gets there and she's like, ooh, I miscalculated. To which Acker is like, oh, don't worry. Like, you can just jimmy the lock with that dagger that you have. To which Brynn is like, funny story about that. She's like, I threw it in the ocean a few days ago. Again, time? Who knows? It's apparently been a couple days, right? Acker is unfazed. He's just like, no, that's fine. You can just call it. She's like, pardon? He's like, it's yours. I can't explain it now, but like, you can just close your eyes. Call it, girl. The waves are rising. I obey without question. Acker's like, reach out for it, feel for it. Imagine you're picking it up from where you dropped it. Just like mime it, you know? So she's standing in the jail cell like, and you know what? She feels a little silly, but sure enough, she feels it with like no effort whatsoever. She just like grabs it. It's suddenly in her hand again. And Acker is like, cool, get me the fuck out of here. Apparently, while they're having this conversation of like, just call your knife, blah, 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 the waves have risen so high that there's like an inch of air left for them to breathe. They're like up at the ceiling, like, sense of urgency. They seem relatively calm in this situation. And Brynn is still kind of just like looking at the knife like, handy. That was pretty cool. But once a big wave finally like really knocks Acker down to the point where like they're running out of air, he just gasps and says, Jovi. That's your name, by the way. Jovi. There's a goodbye in his tone. Her name is Jovi. And someone made the wonderful comment of now they only think of her as Brynn Jovi. So I'm going to be calling her Brynn and Jovi, both of those. There you go. Okay. He's trying to get her to just leave him because apparently she's not picking the lock. She's not able to or whatever. He's like, listen, just leave. It's fine. It's over. Your name's Jovi. Hope you have a good life, whatever. But at the very last moment, Brynn finds the right angle and clangs the door open. They make it to the roof of the jail. They're like gasping. They take a moment to like calm down. Acker just like breaks his shackles. He's just like, pop. Why couldn't he have done that like in the jail? Lord only knows. He's got him on like his wrists and his ankles and he just goes like pop, pop. Brynn just kind of looks at him like, okay, you can swim, right? And they dive into the storm-torn sea. Just keep in mind, this man, Acker, has not eaten really for over a week. His skin is pale and gross. He was beaten. His eyes are still practically swollen shut. And yet he can swim for 2 hours through a cyclone and then climb to the tallest story of the island to get into her apartment. And then he passes out. He has not woken up since. We're back in Brynn's apartment. Brynn is freaking out. The storm is over. We don't know how many days have passed. Like, was the storm just overnight? Did the storm last for multiple days? Unknown. But it's a morning after a night, okay? The weather has cleared up enough that she knows that the guards have probably returned to the jail and are gonna notice an empty cell. She manages to run to the mess hall to get some food, and as she's coming back to the apartment, she notices that there are already guards walking around questioning people. So she is very not calm, all right? But Acker, luckily, is alive and awake by the time that she gets back to the apartment, and immediately he's just like, oh, thank God you brought food. Not like, hey, how are you? You saved my life. He's just like, oh, great. Snacks. He grabs like most of it off of her plate, but that's okay because she has zero appetite. She's like, Acker, you need to get the hell out of my room. She's like, there are soldiers checking every single house. You can take all of my food, but like for the love of God, go sit out on the roof or something. Like you've got to not be here, please. He seems unfazed by this. Acker is generally an unfazed person, so he's like, okay. He like takes all the food. He's like, just holler if you need me, okay? Bye, bestie. And he just like climbs out the window. Seconds later, Kai knocks on the door and he's like, are you decent? He's like, listen, we've got to check every room. I know you, Brynn, of all people, would never do anything like this, but like, we gotta, you know. And in walk the soldiers. Kai walks in and he's like really apologetic. He feels like he fucked up, right? Like he feels personally responsible for this. So he's just like ragged, worried, and that makes Brynn feel worse. She's like, my heart hurts for this guy. Like, damn, he really cares about his people, and he's having like the worst day because of what I did. So she feels horrible. So she kind of like grabs his hand and he leans in to kiss her, because what are they gonna do? Throw her in jail again? And then he finally says, I love you. Warmth blooms in my chest, and I blink against the onslaught of moisture in my eyes. He's never said those words to me, nor I to him. I don't trust myself to speak without my voice cracking, so I use a hand against the nape of his neck to bring his mouth back on to mine. And while that's all going on, the soldiers are looking around the room, and they're like, checks out. All right, on to the next house. See you guys later. And they leave. Kai is like, you know, be safe, keep a lookout. I love you. You know, the door is barely even closed when Acker like swings himself back into the apartment with his nostrils flaring. I love when nostrils flare. He is angry. But you know what? So is Brynn, because she looks at the bathroom and she is like, you left your dirty shirt on my bathroom floor, which would piss me off regardless, but also that would have gotten us caught, okay? Pick up your damn stuff. And just as she's like really getting started, like laying it into him, she's all of a sudden like, you know what? I'm too sleepy for this. And she just crawls into bed and goes to sleep. Heaven forbid they ever finish a thought, right? Like anytime they're about to have a normal human interaction, it just ends. She's like, I cannot deal. I'm going to sleep. Speechless. Half the time with this book, I'm just speechless. When Brynn wakes up, which was apparently 15-ish hours later, she wakes up to a man doing push-ups on her floor. Somehow there's more food. How did Acker go to the mess hall without getting noticed? Your guess is as good as mine, but there's soup. We love soup, okay? And as she's eating it, she's like barely even out of bed, just like shoveling soup into her body. And Acker's like, hey, so you know that these people like stole you, right? He says, do you even know the history of Alaha's exile? They took you from your home and your mother. And buckle up, folks. Gonna get some world building here, finally. So according to Brynn, this is the history that she knows, okay? Kenta didn't want to share their resources anymore. So they sent Alaha to this weird tree island thing. Acker is like, well, let's get one thing straight here, okay? Kenta is actually made up of many different pieces, many different territories, and each one is ruled by a different family. And he says that they are chosen by Mother Nature and they have magic. Apparently, back in the day, Alaha was part of Kenta, and the magic that the Alaha people had was the magic of like persuasion or influence. And originally that was meant to, like, Mother Nature gave them that gift because that was to help prevent war. So like they would be able to take a hold of the situation and like calm everybody down. But that's assuming that Alaha stays neutral always. Like, I just don't understand. Mother Nature, you made an oopsie. Like, that's just a dumb gift, to be honest. If the purpose of giving people the ability to control other people's emotions is to stop war, but surprise, surprise. Apparently they went rogue and persuaded people to give them money and land and armies and bad stuff. And who was that Alaha that went bad? Captain Wren. And I know that time is totally warped in this book, but even Brynn is like, hold on a second. She's like, that would make him hundreds of years old. To which Acker is like, 317 to be exact. He says, the lifespan of an heir is shortened by the distance from the land. Someone as powerful as Wren could live for millennia. Okay. But apparently his blood oath stops him from really saying more. So Brynn just like brushes off the fact that her like pseudo father could be hundreds of years old and moves directly onto like, I don't think Ren would be capable of that. To which Acker says, not just him. They just look at each other in silence, and Acker starts to nod as Brynn starts to shake her head. And somehow they both, without speaking, they both understand that he was referring to Kai. Brynn is like, no, he'd never do that to me. Kai doesn't even have magic. Do what to you? Like, he wouldn't do that to me. Kai doesn't have magic. Acker never said anything about Kai doing anything to you. There are just these like leaps that each conversation makes that have no... Anyway, she's like, no dice. Kai doesn't have magic. And Brynn says, and I quote, Mother Nature is not like a real entity. Brynn is fully like, magic is not real, bud. Like, you're crazy. Says the girl who just summoned a knife from the bottom of the ocean like a couple days earlier. Magic isn't real. Girl, are we reading the same book? Like, But Acker believes that Kai has been using his powers on Brynn for years. To which Brynn says, you've got a lot of nerve. And he says, at least I have something better than not having a backbone. What are they saying? Like, am I truly missing something in this Anyway, Brynn is basically like, listen, the matching ceremony is in 2 days. I'm going to be busy getting matched and everyone's going to be looking at me. So that's a great time for you to hightail it out of here. Get in your weird little dinghy that probably didn't survive the storm and go home. To which Acker tells her that he will be, quote, going nowhere without her and that he will hog tie her if he has to. Awesome. A few hours later, Brynn goes to play cards with Messer. Apparently, they always ask her to come play, like Kai and Messer and all the guards have like card game night. She always says no, but she's like, I do not want to sit in my apartment with this cranky old man. Why don't I go hang out? She starts to second guess every interaction she's ever had with everybody because Acker is like, yeah, your boyfriend has magic and he's been using it on you, blah, blah, blah. She assumes everyone has magic and is using it on her. So at the card game, remember, Messer is like super charismatic and like everybody falls at his feet. She's like, is he really that charming or is he using magic? So she like tries to sense it. Even though she apparently doesn't believe magic is real, she's just kind of sitting there trying to put out feelers like, is there magic in the air? Anyway, she doesn't feel anything unusual. So she just has like a chill conversation with everybody. Messer, weirdly, is getting matched. I don't know if we find out now. Doesn't really matter. He's getting matched to Aurora. And he's kind of like, yeah, I didn't see that one coming. There's also another guy named Lawson who is literally only in this scene, but he is apparently really nice. But something about him, his like social standing, he is not getting matched, and so he will likely only ever get matched when he's like much older and there are like widows searching for single men, and he's like, damn, I'm never gonna touch a girl. To which Messer kindly says, don't worry, man, if you hit your 30s and you haven't lost your virginity, I will happily suck you off. And that's that. I have no idea what time it is because I got the feeling that this card game was happening late into the night, but apparently it's daytime. So as she's walking home, she stops at the dressmaker to get her dress for the matching ceremony. Kai swoops in out of nowhere and is like, I'm paying for it. Put this on my bill. This is my woman. And they have just like a cute moment talking about how he knew that he wanted to marry her since they were 11 years old after he got over the whole like girl cooties thing because they were playing hide and seek and they were trapped together for a really long time. It just like seems cute. Like it's a cute story, which makes it strange that when she gets home, she just starts sobbing, collapses to the floor in tears. And Acker is just like, probably like still doing push-ups, and he gets up and he's just like, you good? I squeeze my eyes shut and more tears escape. What does it feel like? I ask. What does it feel like when someone uses their power on you? She describes what happens when she is alone with Kai, and she mentions basically feeling something in her sternum, like pulling. And he's like, yep, that sounds like your magic trying to protect you. Alarm bells ringing. Summon the red flag guy, you know? She doesn't really say more than that other than like, I'd like to be alone, please. And he's like, yeah, cool. I will be on the roof. And the first thing she does when she's alone is she digs out all of her old sketchbooks. She's kept them. She's had them since she was 7. She's been drawing every day. And she notices that she always used to draw nature. Like that was what she preferred to draw, right? Until she made her first drawing of a human, and that was Kai, which kind of makes sense because like she didn't have many options of human models, right? She had her Captain Wren, Feline, the mom, or Kai was like who she hung out with. But anyway, she goes back to the memory that like this drawing is of, where they're sitting in a tree, everything is really normal, they're just like looking out over the ocean, and she feels content and loved, but everything changed with one touch of his hand on mine. My stomach was in knots. I was seeing him in a different light. After he caught me staring, he kisses me, just the corner of my mouth, as chaste as a kiss can be. And then apparently after that, she just like stopped drawing nature and drew humans instead. What revelation are we supposed to get out of that? I don't know, guys. That's where the memory ends. And basically for the first time since she was 7 years old, she just sobs and sobs. Congratulations, you've made it to the first quarter of the book. I'm going to take a break. You are on page 121, and she's about to get married. Eventually, Acker comes back into the room, and Brynn decides, I need to know everything. Like, tell me all about this magic shit. Don't leave anything out. So, what do we learn is that Acker, his powers they're all related to elements, right? So he can do metal stuff, and that's all he gives us. And as far as Brynn's story goes, he says that her family was visiting Kenta when Brynn went missing. She was taken from her bed, and everyone just kind of figured like, oh, maybe she like wandered out to the ocean, like to go to the beach, and like she washed away. Like it was this tragedy, right? And something about the way that he's telling this story, Brynn is like, these are your memory. Like you were there, weren't you? He apparently helped the water elementals. Like they gathered all the people in Kenta who could have water powers, and they like did a Moses and like parted the seas to try and find her on the ocean floor. I mean, it was not good, right? And apparently, obviously they didn't find her. Apparently her mom is still alive and well. I feel like he could have told her that and gotten a lot further instead of being like, I'm gonna hog tie you if you don't come with me. I'm pretty sure if he had just said like, listen, your mom's alive, like, don't you want to go see her? Brynn would have changed her tune a lot earlier. Okay. Apparently, she has never given up searching for Brynn, but her dad, who we don't know where he is, apparently her dad like wanted to have a funeral to like get closure, and that didn't work. So her mom is still looking for her every day. And now again, me, speaking for myself, I feel like I would have follow-up questions, right? Like anything about my parents that I thought were dead for 10, 12 years at this point, right? No. She wants to know about Acker. She's like, we were close, weren't we? She was like, were we friends? I feel like we were friends. Acker says, if you can believe it, yeah, we were friends. That's how he recognized her so quickly at the market. And apparently it was confirmed because the blade that she took started to like hum in his pocket. So remember how he said that that was her knife so that she could like summon it or whatever? Yeah, it was hers, and he kind of held on to it as a keepsake. And once she got near it, it started to be like, ooh, my owner. And he was like, that's my Jovi. Apparently he also spent his whole life looking for her, and then apparently after a couple years he was like, this girl is dead. And honestly, he felt ashamed at the market when he saw her because he had given up on her, and he felt really bad about that. You know, he was like, honestly, it sucked to keep looking for your friend. Told myself you were dead and it weirdly made me feel better. And now I feel really shitty about that because look at you, alive and well. Trying to change the subject, Brynn's next question is, who was I? She says, regular schmegular people don't get kidnapped. What was my title? Those are her exact words from the book. Regular schmegular people don't get kidnapped. Acker smiles. All teeth and pretentiousness. You are Princess Jovi of Melee. And Brynn, of course, is like, a princess? Shut up. Yes, indeed. Alaha apparently wanted to start another war, and they were like, kidnapping a princess is war starter 101. I don't quite track, like, obviously it didn't reignite a war because nobody knew that Alaha took her, because if they did, they would have come and gotten her a lot sooner, you know? So it just kind of destabilized things, I guess. Like her mom withdrew from politics, and so there's not like a real strong alliance between the kingdoms. I don't know. But anyway, Acker thinks that it wasn't just to start a war. He has another theory as to why she was taken. This is where the lack of world building really just hinders any emotional impact this plot could have, because we don't know anything about the matching ceremony. We just know that people either choose or get chosen who to be with just so that we don't have inbreeding and like overpopulation issues. That's all we know. And like, you can't kiss. Okay, but Acker lets us know that there apparently is such a thing as a true match. Dare I say mate. They have a rare bond like no other, etc. If Kai, this is Acker's theory, if Kai, who just happens to be like the same age as Brynn and handsome and powerful and blah, 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 if he was able to convince Brynn that they were true matches, he would be able to claim half your territory. So again, like, we don't know the rules of the matching system. What's keeping him from doing that by just being a normal match? Who sets up the like inheritance laws? Is this a universally applied kind of inheritance law or something? Like, what? This is just it's just weird. It's just weird. Anyway, apparently the magic that he uses on Brynn is, it like mimics the feeling of having a true match. And Acker says that Kai's power is apparently so great that he could take over Brynn's entire sense of self. So like, lucky her that he's only manipulating her like lovey-dovey feelings. He could actually erase your whole brain. I really hope that editing Cari is finding a way to make this funny, because I'm honestly just like bored. For example, how rare is magic? Like the way that he first talked about it, we aren't aware of like how many people have it. Like, is it rare? Because then he talks about like with Brynn searching for her body, he gathered all of the water magic people. Like I have no concept of what magic means. Are there a lot of people with magic? Are there not? Does everyone know about matches and true matches? How does he know that Kai? It's just like there's, again, who is going to legitimately let him take half of her land? They're interrupted because Kai's mom arrives to deliver her dress for the matching ceremony. She's basically like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you to be my daughter-in-law. Like, I love you, Kai loves you. I couldn't have dreamed of a happier situation. Are you okay? Like, can I get you anything? I love you so much. Here's a little bit of money. It's like a cute, heartwarming scene. And then the second she leaves, she just turns to Acker and is like, we're leaving tonight. Like, remember, we went from the last conversation we had was, I'm going to hog tie you if you don't agree to leave with me. Then she has like a little conversation that doesn't seem to make any sense. And why are we suddenly trusting this man? And immediately she's like, we're leaving tonight. I'm leaving with you. I'm not marrying this person who has given me no reason to not trust him, other than like that weird thing that could have been a gas bubble, honestly, that weird feeling in my sternum. We're leaving tonight. As she prepares to leave, she's a little sad because she actually hasn't seen her pet bird in a while. So she like puts out some nuts and fruit on the roof for him to eat. And they manage to make it to the docks without being detected, which is a feat. She was worried about her neighbor And her neighbor like does come out, and she's basically like, you guys were arguing so loud, and you're so lucky that I'm such a understanding, nice lady, and rah, 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 rah. Screams at them. She goes back into her apartment. That was the only obstacle, right? So they make it to the docks, but just as Brynn is about to jump into her fishing boat that she found, she's grabbed by one of the guards and Kai, who again appears out of thin air. He forces Acker to his knees using his power, and she says, quote, "This is the first time I've seen Kai use his gift on anyone, and a newfound fear takes root inside of me." So she's never actually seen him use magic, or she doesn't think she has. And so she's like, oh fuck, wait a damn minute, Acker's telling the truth. He does have the like persuasion or the compulsion power. Kai is pissed, and he's like looking between Brynn and Acker, and he's like nostrils flaring as usual. And he says, quote, "Everything I've done to protect you." Now, I have to assume this is a typo, because either it's supposed to be "after everything I've done to protect you," or "everything I've done was to protect you." We are missing a key word. And I guess the author is just letting us take our pick. So he's like, "Everything I've done to protect you." Let me just read you this exact conversation that they have, and let me tell you if it sounds like we're missing words or context, because again, this like just does not sound like how two human beings talk to each other. So Brynn says, "You are who I need protecting from." He shakes his head. "You have no idea." I all but snarl at him. "Enlighten me then. It was me or my father." Stunned by his words, I stumble back. "I could sense your magic reacting to mine in the dress shop. Why didn't you stop me then?" Kai says. "Because I was hoping I was wrong. I never wanted you to find out like this." He, during this time, keeps calling her Brynn, and he's like holding Acker, and Acker is like, "Yeah, that's not her name." And Brynn and Kai are just like, "Shut up, Acker." Kai tries to explain that he only ever fed her emotions back to her. Like he just kind of judged her emotions. And Brynn is like, "Yeah, that's still not cool with me." To which Kai says, "Why do you think I never bedded you?" Humiliation burns through my veins. I know at this moment he's no longer my friend, but it feels like a low blow. He basically said, like, I wanted it to be your choice. Like, I wanted you to genuinely come to me if you wanted to reach that level in our relationship. I wanted you to love me yourself, like when you gave yourself to me. And Brynn says, "I don't need my magic to know when he's being honest." And then Kai is like, and actually, by the way, I have a plan with all this, so you can't leave tonight. And by the way, guard, you can like kill that guy, just Acker. Cut to a fight scene. People get stabbed. Someone dies. Acker almost kills Kai. Brynn begs for his life. They jump into a fishing boat and they row away out into the sea. Okay? I guess they're trying to go to Kenta, the 6-week-long journey in a fishing boat that they never really describe. So it's essentially a rowboat that does have one sail. It doesn't seem to have any internal part. So there's no like shade. There's no like deck below. It's just this that they're going to cross the Pacific Ocean in. I'll see you tomorrow. Next chapter. We are unclear, as usual, about how much time has passed, but apparently they are now well and truly off course and fucked. And that is a quote. All of Alaha's like armada is after them. So then they start going west, then they start going. It's been a while that they've been on this dinky little rowboat, somehow outrunning massive ships. Okay. They apparently rowed and rowed and rowed. And when we were unable to row anymore, we rowed some more. So again, we don't know how much time has passed since we last left them. But remember, Acker got into a fight and it seems like whatever stab wound he got is infected. He's throwing up over the side of the ship and they decide to take a risk and raise the sail because this little dinghy has but one sail. And they didn't use it for however long they've been rowing because they didn't want to attract attention, but they're going to raise the sail because they got to get out of here. Brynn uses a little first aid kit to tend to Acker's wound. They get the sail up and then they pass out. They were literally like, Jesus, take the sail. off they go. They wake up a little bit later. They end up chit-chatting and we learn a few things. And this is really the part of the book where we just get these convenient info dumps. Like they will just have a random conversation. He'll drop a couple hints and then they'll like go on their merry way. It's kind of endless. The pacing of this book, it might be a little bit less easy to notice because I'm the one in charge of the pace right now. But it's just a very bizarrely paced book. Let's just say. So what did we learn from this weird conversation? Acker joined the army when he was 13. So he's really, really good at a sword, but for kind of sad reasons. He also lets us know that there is another country called Royson. Boy, would I love a map of this world. Nothing... I don't know. Okay, so there's Kenta, and Kenta is ruled by a bunch of families, but Royson is its own thing. But the Alaha were Kenta. Okay, so he mentions that Royson, which is a neighboring country of Kenta, the king of Royson confessed to kidnapping Brynn, which he did not do. We know who did. But because Royson confessed, Brynn's mom killed the king of Royson. So now there's this whole hubbub, okay? Chaos, right? Why did Royson confess? Did Ren use persuasion? Is he that powerful that he could persuade someone to admit to murder? Interesting. And we move on. End of discussion. This is when we notice that Acker is actually leaking. Brynn did her best while she was doing her first aid, but apparently it wasn't enough. So we have decided we need to take it to the next level. He needs stitches. And in order to do that, he needs to be distracted because what are we using to do this? Fish hooks. So he's like, can you like talk me through this so that I'm not noticing that like fish hooks are being dug into my skin. Let's have another chat. That last one was nice. Acker is like, Brynn, give us a lowdown on your childhood. And Brynn is like, honestly, it was pretty awesome. She was like, I had a lot of fun. I was sort of just a menace with Kai. Like we were just semi above the law because of who his family was. And so we just kind of terrorized the town. I had a lot of freedom and his parents loved me and I felt safe. But apparently as they started getting older, the troublemakers reached a level that was like actually causing harm to the community. And so they needed to be separated. So that is why Brynn lives in an apartment like way, way up, kind of in the middle of nowhere in her tree clump. She got her own space, which like I feel like she probably needed, but she also felt quite lonely up there. Acker is sort of like, as much as I don't want you to like love the people that kidnapped you, I'm at least happy that you had a good childhood, right? Like I don't wish horrible circumstances upon you. So yeah, I'm just glad to hear it. Brynn, or Jovi, or whatever he says. Glad to hear it. And then Brynn out of nowhere is like, yeah, so why'd you put my hand on that wall? Literally, he's just like, wow, I'm glad you had a good childhood. And she's like, yeah, why'd you make me touch that thing? But Acker doesn't miss a beat, doesn't even hesitate. These two are made for each other because they do not speak like normal people. And he's just like, yeah, that wasn't a weird segue at all. Let me tell you about it. He was like, well, because you were staying in Alaha, so I think you missed your awakening, right? Brynn is like, my awakening? Apparently, if you have magic, you go through like a magical puberty, essentially, where you like come into your powers, I guess. But it only happens when you are touching, again, the dirt. You need to be touching land. And so if she's not on land, she doesn't get to awaken. So he thought that he could spark it by having her touch the cliff.
The cliffs of insanity!
I don't remember if this was described. I'm assuming it wasn't, but I'm assuming the market was like just a bunch of different like piers or like boardwalks put together. I don't know if she actually like touched ground. So the cliff was really the only bit of dirt that she could touch. So he was like, let me make this girl touch the dirt. And yeah, she was in excruciating pain. Thanks for that, Acker. And he was like, it's apparently normal puberty it just feels like growing pains, right? But she got it all in one dose. So that hurt. But apparently Acker is like, but I don't think you really touched it long enough. You need to cook a little bit more to get your full powers. And Brynn is like, if I step on land, that's gonna happen again. Like the worst pain I have ever felt to the point where I passed out again. She's sort of like, you know, I just told you about how much I really liked my life. I've got a pet bird. I've got a nice sketchbook. I've got a little apartment with a cool view. I'm very happy to turn this boat around. Like, I don't want to go through that again. But Acker reassures her. He's like, it'll be like a day. It'll be like a day. It's fine. And Brynn is basically like, I'd better get some fucking rad powers if I have to go through this again. The next day, they're fishing because they are on a fishing boat with no food or water for unknown amount of time, right? Enough for him to get a severe infection that causes him to throw up. Enough for them to outrun an armada. I'm gonna stop. So Brynn is bored to tears, and that must be why she is oogling the shirtless soldier, the only other human in sight. And she's kind of like shaking it off. She's like, Brynn, get your head in the game. Enemy. Maybe. Unknown. Like, what is their relationship? It'd be nice if they had like conversations that weren't just awkward world building, okay? But alone they will not be for long, because who pulls up to their ship?
Ready for this?
You're not gonna guess. Bird.
When I come to the club, step aside.
Bird has arrived, thank God. The plot was moving like molasses. So Acker immediately tries to attack it, and Brynn is thinking like, oh my God, he's so sick of fish. He wants to eat my pet bird. And so she starts attacking Acker, and she's just screaming at him like, don't eat my pet bird. And Acker is like, I don't want to eat that thing. I want to kill it. Why? Because this is like a mythical, creepy ass bird harbinger of chaos and death and evil things. And Brynn is like, my bird? My sweet pet bird? It's called an Ian. I haven't listened to the audiobook, guys. Forgive me. It is a mythological creature, a bird of prey that can devour men whole without leaving a trace. And Acker's like, I've really only seen pictures, but spot on. Damn, it's one ugly bird. However, the bird is smart enough to use this opportunity to fly to the top of the sail out of reach. And Brynn is like, you are not touching my pet bird. And she's like, yeah, I also never named it. So once I name it, you can't kill it. And so she decides she's going to name it Blue. Blue. Next chapter, once again, unknown amount of time has passed, but we know that a lot of time has passed. The book says that they lose track of time. They know that days have passed, but they don't know how many. They're thirsty and once again, bored out of their minds. Brynn decides to take a little dip in the sea. So she dives in, and this is when she realizes she's homesick. She says, I know leaving Alaha was something I had to do. It doesn't stop me from being homesick. I miss Kai and Messer, maybe even Aurora. That's probably the dehydration getting the better of me. Shots fired. Aurora has done nothing to you, Brynn. She is just like a semi-annoying girl who likes to blow things up. And justice for Aurora, okay? My favorite character, honestly. So she's just kind of doing her like sad swim. She's basically like, at least I've got my bird. And she tries to get back into the boat when something wraps around her ankle and pulls her down. And remember, this is the girl who's been raised on legends of the giant squid. So she's pretty much just like, my time has come. But our girl isn't going down without a fight. So when she's finally able to like struggle and get herself free, she whips around, and who is smiling up at her from the depths but Acker? He's bored too. Just wanted to play around. They have like a splashing, like, oh my God, I can't believe you got me wet. Like, yeah, they just like splash each other a lot and wrestle in the water. But then when for some reason, the way that Acker touches her, she gets like PTSD and these violent flashbacks to how Kai touches her to use his magic. She has a mini little panic attack. She freezes up. The vibe, dead. And they both just get back in the boat. He tries to say sorry, but Brynn is just like, no, just leave it. And any chance of them having a deeper conversation is dashed by a quick change in the wind. Another storm has arrived. They decide to eat really fast because they're assuming they're going to be up all night fighting this storm. So they prepare a little bit of fish when Brynn is like, slow your fucking roll, Acker. And she points to his dagger. She's like, you've been using that to cut fish this whole time? And Acker is like, yes, this is my only knife. So Brynn finds another fish from the bucket and uses it to slap Acker across the face. Because apparently in the fight that they were in right before they jumped into this little dinghy and started this whole rowboat adventure. It was quite a violent fight. He got stabbed, right? Acker did in fact stab someone in the eyeball, and he is using that same dagger to cut the fish. Acker is like, I washed it. He's like, we had alcohol. I disinfected it and now I'm cutting fish. Like, what is your deal? That is like the final straw for Brynn for some reason. She's just like, oh, I can't be on this boat with you anymore. And she moves to the opposite side of the boat, which is probably like 4 feet away from Acker. So, and as she sits down to sulk, because she's been eating eyeball stained fish, I don't know, a big fat raindrop falls on her face. And the storm is upon them almost instantly. Now, this buildup, it seems like it's going to be a pretty epic storm, right? It seems like it's going to be a pretty important part of the plot. Maybe there's going to be some bonding in between, you know, like maybe we're going to have something to push the plot forward. Wouldn't that be funny? No. We get about 3 pages of them seeing waves. They see lightning strike the water and the water lights up. Like, that's pretty cool. But the only thing that happens is them standing on the boat watching this shit go down, and they're like holding each other. They're literally just like on a boat being like, oh no, a wave, oh no, lightning, oh no, oh no, and that's it. Fish eyeball knife scene had more emotion than this action scene. Like, it, oh, infuriating. Anyway, they're fine. But like, 3 pages later, they're waking up, sun is shining, birds are chirping. And they just hugged all night. So, all right. The next scene, we're like looking at one of Brynn's dreams. So apparently at some point she has fallen asleep during this epic, intense storm. Here's the dream. She's apparently been having the same dream for weeks because we've been on this boat for weeks. She's in a comfy bed that eventually turns into rolling hills of green. And she has pale blonde hair flowing in the breeze. Pale blonde hair. Okay. She has a golden butterfly on her finger. And there are 2 boys playing in the meadow. One is a freckle face with a little bit of red hair. Trouble. And the other one is beautiful. I love how it's like one has freckles and one is beautiful. But yeah, the beautiful boy has brown hair and beautiful eyes. And so then she wakes up after the storm, apparently, to a cloudless, sunny day. And she turns to see Acker laying down in the boat with her, gazing at her with those same brown eyes as the boy from my dream, just older and wiser. They both realize at the same time that they have survived the storm, survived the night, where they get up and they just start frantically hugging each other. Like, oh my God, that was so scary. Are you okay? That was crazy. Oh my God. And then they realize that they're hugging each other and they're like, oh. I'm gonna go fix the ship. Okay. Bye. Eventually they stop being awkward and they kind of have a little bit of small talk. They're basically both just like, I feel hungover. Like, that was rough. When Acker just randomly brings up the name Hallis, he's like, yeah, my friend Hallis. How convenient. And Brynn is like, oh yeah, Hallis, is he still a idiot like he was when he was a kid? Because in her dream, apparently baby Acker called Hallis a twat. Excuse me, not an idiot, a twat. Acker goes still at my words, eyes locked onto me as he comes to a stand. When did you start getting your memories back? She's like, me? Oh, they're mostly like fuzzy little things. No big deal. Don't worry about it. And Acker's sort of like, well, I've got a right. If you're dreaming about me, babe, I've got a right to know. So Brynn says, it was that one time you guys were teasing me in the field. And Acker is like, that is so vague, girl. Like, what? Brynn's like, yeah, you know, that one time that you confessed your undying love to me? Color leaches from his face. So much so that it gives me pause. A million different emotions cross over his face when he realizes I'm joking. Oh. He's like, shit, you remembered that? And she's like, I made that up. And he's like, fuck. He ends up turning away and he's mumbling to himself, and Brynn can definitely hear him be like, I was 9 years old. Give me a break, man. So apparently he did confess his undying love to her when he was 9. And he may or may not have said something along the lines of, she was the prettiest girl he'd ever seen. And then Brynn laughed in his face, kind of like what she's doing right now. So glad things never change. Brynn eventually is like, I'm sorry, man, that was good though, right? That was really good. And Acker, to kill the moment, so seriously is like, you know, you're really beautiful when you lie. They just kind of stare at each other in silence for a second. And we somehow get on the topic of cooties. I don't know which one of them finally breaks the silence, but he's like, anyway, I thought you had cooties. And how apparently Acker has grown into his cooties and now has devastatingly handsome cooties. And Brynn is like, devastatingly humble cooties too. But let's talk about some serious stuff. She's like, speaking of undying love, you told me you had a true match. Tell me about your girlfriend. I gotta read this because I can't even understand my own notes. So apparently Acker does have a true match. However, he hasn't been claimed. Like, he has called out the winning lottery ticket number. The girl is out there. She just hasn't come to collect. All right? He says, quote, I've waited a long time for my match to claim me, he says, expression pensive as he scratches the stubble that's been accumulating along his jaw. Long enough, I think. And because he hasn't been claimed, she can do whatever the hell she wants, and he can do whatever the hell he wants. And that's that, baby. Next scene, we're apparently skipping a few days, and they are hungry and bored again, and I know the feeling. So they decide to play Would You Rather. Like, I cannot describe to you, like when I told you that this entire boat nonsense is just us passing a shitload of time so that they can have these tiny snippets of conversation in order to give us like the teeniest crumb of clue or plot. Questions include, would you rather never eat bread again or only eat bread for the rest of your life? So this is all set up for an innuendo that I'm still mad about because I mentioned this in my live reading update. I get what it's trying to say. It's just stupid. Okay, here's Acker's big innuendo. Remember, this is a couple days prior. He had called her beautiful and he had mentioned that he is a free agent in terms of his mating bond or whatever the hell. Okay, so Acker asks, would you rather be hairy all over or have no hair at all? Brynn says, no hair. Acker says, yeah, I bet you could swim really fast without it, like a fish. To which Brynn says, I changed my mind. You might actually mistake me for a fish and eat me. To which Acker says, joke's on you. I'm plenty hungry enough to eat you now with or without hair. She also has to tell us in the next paragraph that that was an innuendo. Brynn is like, I'm still getting over Acker's use of innuendo. It's not sexy or funny. Like, he is hungry. He could just be talking about cannibalism. Like, he could just eat her meat, you know? Anyway, that's the whole chapter. And we move on. We finally see a seagull. Thank God we're close to land. How much time has passed? Unknown. But apparently it's just in time because Acker and Brynn have not eaten in a very long time. Not very good at fishing. I'm assuming they need water. We have had no discussion of water on this weeks and weeks long journey. Okay. So anyway, they start heading towards where they believe land is. They can see it getting shallower as they go in this direction. When Brynn starts feeling really nauseous. She kind of shakes it off at first. She's like, yeah, man, it's just, I'm so hungry. I think I'm thirsty. I don't know. Apparently we don't drink water. When another wave of nausea hits her, and another, and another. She finally sees land on the horizon, looks to Acker to make sure, like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, this isn't a hallucination. Confirmed that she sees land, promptly turns and throws everything up over the side of the boat. Remember how she's going to be in a lot of pain when she gets on land? Turns out this is all part of her awakening. And as excited as they are to be near land finally to get off this fucking boat, they notice that the sand on the beach that they're approaching is black, which means that they have accidentally veered into Royson territory, who, remember, is who claimed that they kidnapped Brynn, even though they didn't, and is not friendly with anyone. I don't know. Like, they don't like Kenta. Okay? Acker really wants to turn around. He's like, we can't land here. Like, if we just turn and go like a little bit further, we'll end up in Kenta. And Brynn is like, I am getting off this boat. Literally, if it kills me. Like, we need food. I don't know why they can't find fish. It's never explained. They were having a fine time eating fish a couple weeks ago. Anyway, they gotta get off this damn boat. And she said, if it literally kills me, and she might actually have to eat her words because almost kill her, it nearly does. She can't even swim to shore. Like, it's that bad that she is like starting to convulse. It's ugly. Acker carries her to shore and tries to lay her gently down on the ground. But remember, the ground is what is making her be in such extreme pain. So apparently her body starts to contort itself in an effort to escape the pain. I can't hear what Acker's saying. All I can see is his lips moving. All that exists is the pain, like lightning through my veins. And finally, she can hear what Acker is saying. And he's like, girl, I need you to shut the fuck up. She's apparently screaming in pain. He's like, the soldiers who, like, our enemies are going to hear us and come kill us. So if you could please suffer in silence, I can't deal with you and fight off an army at the same time. For the love of God, shut your trap hole. He finds some kind of leaf, stuffs it in her mouth, and is just like, shut the fuck up. The leaf that he gave her is apparently some kind of drug that just keeps putting her to sleep, but she's burning through it really quickly, so she will like wake up, be in extreme pain. He'll just like shove a leaf in her mouth. She'll fall asleep. She'll wake up, be in extreme pain. He'll shove a leaf in her mouth. But the next time she like fully wakes up and has enough time to look around, he is carrying her to a different location. They are apparently being followed in the time that she has been asleep. Apparently Acker has learned how to communicate with Bird. So apparently they are being followed by a group of 12 men. On top of that, Acker's kind of freaking out because remember how he was like, yeah, you're gonna be in a little bit of pain for a day. No, she is not. She is not supposed to be in such extreme pain. So Acker is like, did I break her? Like, what is going on? He's not in a good place. Nobody is, really. And how many days has it been? Like, again, 1 or 2 days of uncomfortableness. Yeah, it's been 4. Brynn has been going in and out of like a controlled drugged sleep by Acker for 4 days. Also, Brynn continues to just keep vomiting and Acker is carrying her, so he's just like, I am talking to a bird. I may have broken the person I'm trying to save, and I am covered in vomit. And I'm being chased by 12 of our enemies. 'Cause you had a bad day, you take it one down. They run the entire day. At some point, Acker puts Brynn on his back like a spider monkey, you know. When finally they find a tree where Acker realizes that he needs to rest, and so they climb up the tree, try to fall asleep. Bird, Blue, is out of here. He's like, no, this is too much, guys. This isn't fun anymore. He flies away. They fall asleep. Was Brynn ever even awake? Unclear. They fall asleep, they wake up, and guess what? They're surrounded by men. One man steps forward. He's like, hey, Ace. What's up, buddy? A lot of people call Acker Ace. It's never addressed. So who is this man who is on nickname level basis with our Acker? Acker says, Vad, desertion looks terrible on you, man. What's going on? Yes, meet Vad. I don't know why I chose this photo. Vad is someone that Acker knows from his past. Apparently he deserted his cause and now is living in enemy territory. Cool. Acker is like, well, cool seeing ya. We actually don't have anything you could possibly want, so we're gonna be on our merry way, all right? We're heading towards the border. Promise to come back later. Would love to catch up. Bye. And Vad is like, Ace. You're such a laugh. Apparently Vad is what is called an oracle. His power is that he can read minds. So he just like kind of leans around Acker and he's like, oh, hey, Princess Jovelina. What's her name? Jovinia. It's like, hey, Jovinia, lost princess of Melee? Or do you go by Brynn now? They go back and forth with a little struggle. Brynn is freaking out because she can like feel Vad looking around in her mind when Vad drops a bombshell. He's like, oh, Acker, buddy. Yikes. Did you tell her that she's dying? Brynn is like, pardon? What? Wait, what did you say? He turns to Acker. He's like, you knew this, right? He's like, that's why you wanted to turn back. That's why you wanted to go to Kenta, because you knew that she wouldn't be able to survive her awakening without a healer on call. And at least in Kenta, you'd have one right when you hit the shore. But damn, she's a feisty one. She really wanted to get off that boat. Remember when Acker wanted to turn back before they even hit enemy territory? Yeah, maybe he kind of guessed that this was going to be a bit more of an ordeal than he thought. Acker refuses to deal with Vad. He's like, listen, please, for the love of God, leave us alone. We're really close to the border. They're not, but we're gonna just walk to Kenta. It's gonna be fine. We can handle this without you. Thank you, Vad. Nice seeing you. When someone shoots Brynn in the chest to the point where she is like gurgling blood and like, yeah, gonna die. Vad is basically like, ooh, looks like you really need that healer now, don't you, buddy? Yeah, so Acker agrees to have one of those little blood oaths, you know, like the pinky promise kind of thing. He does a blood oath with Vad, and he promises that he would not hurt Vad or any of his men in any way in exchange for the location of the healer. Point me on my merry way, okay? Vad smiles. Great deal, loves getting what he wants, when he hears a blood-curdling scream from one of the trees where the archer that shot Brynn was hiding. Yeah, so Acker made a blood oath that he wasn't going to hurt anybody, but pretty sure our bird friend Blue didn't. He comes back right on time, just like dive bombs these guys, plucks out the archer's eyeballs, I'm pretty sure, and then he like turns. Remember, he is a mythical creature that can eat men, and he just shows us what he's got. Lucky for us though, we did get the location of the healer, so we get like a bunch of blurry scenes because again, this is from Brynn's point of view. So Brynn is going in and out of consciousness. We get a few like scenes of him running, of him talking to this old lady who's the healer. We hear the healer refer to him as the Metal Slinger. So the book is named after Acker. That's a fun one. And basically she survives the ordeal. Not before burning off all her clothes, by the way. That's a fun little side effect of her powers, is that she gets really hot and she burns anything she's wearing. So, which apparently means that she's not an elemental. I don't know how Acker knows this, but apparently no one knows what she is. We don't know anything about the magic system, so we don't know what she could be. Like, could she have the ability to like make socks appear out of nowhere? Like, there's no rhyme or reason for this magic system, so there's no way for us to know like, oh wow, she has this mysterious power that nobody has, because we don't know what people have, you know? Also, while she was asleep, not only did she get a new pair of clothes, but so did Acker, and he apparently looks amazing in pale blue. Just so we know. She randomly is getting memories, like Acker's memories. It's some kind of side effect of the awakening, and it keeps happening. Like, she goes to the bathroom to wash her hands and she looks down and now she's in Acker's body in another room. So they aren't memories, they are his current state of being. She bounces into his body and sees through his eyes and tastes through his mouth because he's eating breakfast. She's like, really need to get that under control. Then at breakfast, a local father and son show up to bring some horses. The healer called them, I think it actually might be the healer's son and husband, it doesn't really matter. These people show up with horses because they're gonna help Brynn and Acker get to the Kenta border where they will be safe. Apparently Blue killed 10 out of the 12 men, so he left some survivors, enough people to be pissed and put a warrant out on these guys. Okay, so now we gotta run. They might have just started a war, so we need to get to the border ASAP. It's apparently a 2-day ride, and we have reached 50% of the book. So it is time to get on our horses. And remember, Brynn Jovi has not been off of her little tree clump in the middle of the sea ever. So how is she gonna ride a horse? Lack of skill, okay, you can learn, but she is terrified of this giant creature. So she's having a little staring contest with this horse when Acker is like, hey Joe, you're glowing again. please don't burn my horse to death. The healer is still like standing watching this all go down, and she's like, oh, she's a light wielder. All right, Metal Slinger, light wielder. Apparently she needs to get her emotions under control or she's gonna burn off all of her clothes and possibly her horse. So we get a moment of Acker using his voice to soothe her. He's like, Brynn Jovi, you're gonna be okay. Listen to my voice. She closes her eyes for a second to apparently gather herself, like to, stop glowing. And she opens her eyes and she is, quote, met with the full force of Acker's beauty. I'm so stunned. My breath fails me. He got hot. Like, we knew that he was really attractive even when he was in jail, but now apparently this is something that she can't deal with. Okay? They finally get on their damn horses. Acker asks for directions, and the guys are like, yeah, you should probably take the south route because there are, quote, fewer trolls. To which Brynn is like, trolls? This continues for the entire book, by the way, that there are apparently a lot of mythical creatures that we just don't know about. Like this mythical bird or the giant squid. Did I skip that section? Did I not mention it that they did get maybe kind of attacked by a squid? Did I dream that part of the book? I think the bird helped them. Anyway, yeah, there's like allegedly trolls and other weird mythical things, but we just like don't know because the world is never built. So I can't tell if that's a joke or not, right? But don't worry, Brynn isn't going to be riding the horse by herself. We get an awkward, classic, oh my god, we're sharing a horse scene, okay? But then Brynn kind of gets a hold of herself. At first, she's kind of gooey, like, oh my god, his back is so broad. When actually she's like, well, wait a damn minute. No, fuck you, Acker, because you're not sharing things with me. Acker did not tell her how close she was to death. And Brynn is sort of like, that is something I feel like I should have been made aware of, was that I was dying. So no more secrets, especially when they pertain to me and my well-being, okay? Where have I heard this before? And so once Acker agrees to that, and she's like, and on top of that, why were those people so fucking weird? The healer and the two people who gave her the horses, okay, were like really strange around, like kind of bowing to her and whatever. My assumption would be she's a princess, but Brynn is like, no, they were real weird. What was up with that? And so here's a bit of world building for you. I have to look directly at my notes. So I asked for more information on the magic. I'm gonna get it. Mother Nature had 4 children: air, water, fire, and earth. But the children kept fighting and everything was chaotic. So she decided to make humans that could control the elements. Apparently, he says, quote, the last time a light wielder walked the earth, which is what she is, she ruled the earth. And apparently also wasn't very nice. That's why they were acting weird, is because the only other representation of your kind is like an evil, all-powerful being. So, but Acker's like, don't worry, I've got a good feeling about you. He says, and I quote, I think you're gonna bring world peace to Kenta. We've reached chapter 23, if you're interested. I don't know why I wrote that specifically down. And we get a scene where Brynn is like playing with dirt. They're on their merry way. Like, this is during their journey. She's just like sitting on the ground making mountains out of dirt, like little mounds, and then like smashing them. Acker's sort of like, hey girl, what are you doing? And Brynn keeps laughing and she's like, oh, just imagining all the times that you were in pain because it brings me joy. And now we are 3 pages into this chapter, right? They have a little back and forth. We are told they have been traveling for weeks and weeks. I gotta get my Kindle and read to you the sentence to see if I'm not crazy. Okay. I stand somewhat corrected. So they're just like sitting around and I get as comfortable as I can considering the ground is hard as a rock. We've been traveling for weeks and weeks and we're less than a day away from our destination. Everything feels foreign, like I'm out of place, and every leaf and blade of grass knows it. Kenta isn't my true home. So she's used this phrase we've been traveling for weeks, or like it's been weeks, it's been days, we've lost track of the days. She's used these really weird time jumps so many times that when she randomly says in the middle of like, we're just hanging out in the woods after having started another leg of our journey using a different now we're on a horse, right? To suddenly be like, we've been traveling for weeks and weeks. As a reader who has now had to deal with a million of your weird time jumps, assumes that they've been traveling for weeks and weeks, right? Like I'm gonna talk, it gets kind of worse later in the book in terms of like, she will just say things so slightly out of context, like there's just a smidge. So like I could see how she thinks that we as a reader are gonna think she means we've been traveling for weeks since the beginning of this journey. But for me, she pulls this shit every other chapter, that there's like a weird time jump. So maybe they have been traveling on this horse for weeks and weeks. You know, I have better examples later in the book, but I don't know what the editing process was, but like maybe as an author, you kind of understand your thought process, but as the reader, So anyway, they're a day out from the border, okay? They're almost to Kenta, but they're not in Kenta. She's saying that everything here feels foreign and I'm out of place. Kenta isn't my true home, but they're in Royson, not Kenta right now, right? Like it. All right, is Royson in Kenta? What is Kenta? What is And so anyway, she's like squishing her dirt patties, whatever, and she says, by the way, why did Vad try to kill me earlier? And why do you know him? We get a non-answer. Acker's basically like, Vad's just kind of a shithead. That night, she gets up, she has to go pee, so she leaves the tent to like go relieve herself in peace, when Acker is like, what are you doing? You can't leave the tent. They go pee together in the woods. This is when Acker learns, number one, Brynn Jovi has been able to see into his head this whole time. Like how she accidentally keeps, whoopsie daisies, I'm eating breakfast in Acker's body, that kind of thing. Yeah, he learns that. And he's about to tell her something really important. And by tell her something important, I mean he's going to kiss her while they're peeing in the woods. When he hears the snap of a branch. Yes, so remember how they had like a warrant, Royson's most wanted kind of thing going on with them? Apparently there was a pretty big bounty on their head, and the son of the farmer who gave them the horse in the first place was sort of strapped for cash. His name's Sven, by the way. Sven arrives, clearly wishing them harm. He says something to Acker about like Acker deserves to die because he's killed people. And also Sven is an animal shifter because that magic works. Like we were told about the magic system, how it's air, fire, water, right? But we also have people who can read minds. And now we also have people who can shift into animals. Like, anyway, Sven decides to shift into a panther and he starts to attack Brynn and Acker. Not before hero of the story, Bird, appears. But Bird is looking something's up with Bird. Let's zoom in. Blue is going through a metamorphosis. You know what this is. And he becomes Messer. The bird is Messer. Messer is an animal shifter. How could he become a bird every single day to hang out with Brynn as a pet on her roof? Like, do they have enough dirt just lying around so that Messer can just, for funsies, be a bird? Like, the magic. Ooh. All right. So anyway, yeah, surprise, Messer is the bird, but not for very long, because in order to fight the panther, he turns into a leopard and they attack each other. Acker and Brynn run off. But then Brynn is like, wait, my best friend, I must protect Messer. And Acker is like, I fucking hate this. I hate this girl. Let me go do the right thing. And they run back into the woods to save her pet bird. They are in something called the Dark Woods at this point. Like on the border of Kenta, there's these dark woods, very dangerous, shouldn't be making a lot of noise, want to get through them really quickly. We know that this is a bad deal. So for them to like run deeper into it to help Messer, All right. At some point, they get attacked by these weird creatures in the woods. I don't know what they are, but whatever they are, they overpower Brynn and Acker pretty much immediately. Brynn goes into a panic, loses her cool, and we know that when she loses her cool, her magic flares. So she kind of blacks out. Like she knows that she kind of blows a fuse and somehow the creatures are gone, but her main focus is Messer. So they like get free from that situation, keep running, and find Messer along with a bunch of soldiers. But luckily, it's the goodies. They seem to know Acker, and these soldiers have horses. Acker immediately springs into action, grabs Messer. I think he's in his leopard body. I don't know if he's a human or a leopard, but he grabs the body of Messer, throws him over a horse, and is just like, get this guy to camp ASAP. And the soldier says, yes, Your Highness. Brynn turns to say something to Acker, something along the lines of, what the fuck? When she suddenly gets like really woozy, and I quote, last thing I hear is Acker cursing as I hit the ground. Acker's like, shit. She's gone. Brynn finally wakes up in a tent. She's looking around like, where am I? When the most beautiful woman she's ever seen walks in. It's another soldier. And the soldier immediately lets her know what's going on. She's like, by the way, you burnt through your magic. You did a number on the dark woods, let me tell you. And yeah, you just burnt through your magic, so you passed out. Happens to everybody, but you're here now. You're safe. Brynn's first question is, where is Acker? Because she remembers that she has a bone to pick with him. When our soldier, quote, gives a half-hearted shrug, probably somewhere committing atrocities while being shamelessly good-looking. And Brynn is like, pardon? Who are you? She asks. The soldier curtsies and says, I'm Bo, third in command, also Acker's sister. Okay, this is Bo. In the book, she has black hair, but this character, I don't know, called to me. We also learn that Messer's in trouble. Pretty sure that was easy to figure out. He's being held somewhere and is likely going to be transported to the dungeons because he's an enemy of the state. He's alaha, which is just enemy right there. But then he also was undercover spying on them. Did he save their lives quite a few times? Yes, but still. So Brynn is like, okay, on my to-do list, number 1, get my pet bird. Number 2, find Acker and give him a piece of my mind. So she starts running around the camp, just looking at any soldier she can find, being like, do you know where Acker is? Have you seen Acker? He's like that tall, beautiful eyes, that guy. And all the soldiers are just like, who is this girl? But finally, she runs into a freckled-faced twat, Hallis. She immediately recognizes him. He does not seem weirded out that she knows who he is. He's just like, hey, you looking for Acker? Come with me. Saving her from having to talk to all these weird soldiers that she is scaring the hell out of. She gets to the tent and walks in. Acker's there. He's pissed. And do you want to know why? I feel like now with the Gulf of America, this puts a whole different weird taste in my mouth. But Acker is so mad at Brynn. Why? Because during her whole saving them from the creatures that were killing them in the woods, and she like exploded with magic or whatever, she wiped out the woods. The woods are gone. Deforestation queen. The dark woods are gone. And so why is Acker mad? Because he needs to redraw every map. Every map is now outdated. So that's why he's like in a tizzy. He's literally like, we have to redraw all of our maps. The Dark Woods, as explained to us, was an evil, cursed blight on the land. So I would be saying thank you first and then go talk to the cartographer. I don't know. Who am I to judge? He's also pissed because while she was trying to find him and she's talking to all these men, being like, Acker, where is he, blah, blah, blah. He says it, quote, makes her look unhinged. He says, it makes it look like I can't control you. And that's a bad thing in front of my men. To which Brynn is like, you don't control me. So Acker is like, ugh, you know what I mean? Don't make this a big thing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, oh, that sets me off more than anything. When a man is like, oh, you know what I meant? You're just being dramatic. She just decimated an entire forest that you guys have been struggling with for who knows how long. Be nice. She could destroy you, even though she doesn't really know how. I would just like maybe tread carefully. But all right. And he cannot believe just like myself, she cannot believe that she did not know that that bird was Messer. He's like, there's no fucking way that you did not know he was a bird. But we know because this is in our POV. Oh, this is just so frustrating because I can't talk about it yet. We know in her POV, she said that she's homesick, she misses Kai, she misses Messer. Messer was a bird and he kind of was like not super on the boat because he was flying around. So like, did she know it was Messer? The writing sure makes it conveniently unclear, let's just say. So convenient. And I can't tell if it's bad writing. You could take things a million different ways. So we don't know. She says she doesn't know that it was Messer. I'm on her side right now because Acker's acting like a little bitch. So that's my take. Also, let's rewind to back when the soldier was like, yes, your highness. Acker's a prince. Since birth? Always. He's always been a prince. Why did the prince have to join the army when he was 13? See dangerous active duty with hahah and be kind of scarred from that experience? Unknown. But yeah, he's a prince. So, of what? Good lord. Messa. So he is about to be interrogated by Bo, our new best friend, Acker's sister. Yeah, she has some kind of power, but she can feel the mood. All right, I'll just tell you. She can read auras. So if somebody's lying, their aura changes color. I don't know. So she's gonna be doing a little interrogation. Brynn goes to check if he's okay. So she like goes up to him and is like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. You were a bird. What the fuck? And oh my God, your eyes are blue? Remember, everyone in Alaha, their eyes are gray. And she said, and okay, let me look this one up again too. He makes a joke. I can't help but smile at his attempt at levity. Your eyes, I say, pausing as I take them in. They're blue. No longer the gray common in the people of Alaha. Yours too, he says. I reach to touch my cheek as if to feel their change, to sense their new color. I look at Acker. He never mentioned it to me. Apparently, that's what happens when you aren't on land. Water bleaches your eyes. Please remember, her eyes are blue. Remember, her eyes are blue. Thank you. So during this exchange, while Brynn and Messer are like staring at each other's eyeballs, Bo is trying to read the situation and she's telling Acker, she's like, yeah, they definitely aren't lovers, but I'm getting the fuckboy aura from that one. To which Messer arches an eyebrow and he's like, you interested? And Bo is like, ew.
Hey there, pretty lady.
Ew. What are you, hitting on me?
Yeah.
Okay, let me put a stop to that little brain fart right now.
They flirt/interrogate each other for a bit, and it seems like Messer has a heart of pure fucking gold. Bo is sort of like, yeah, I mean, he seems to just be really loyal to Brynn, and he wants to like be here to protect her, and that's his only motivation for being here, is just to be loyal and loving to Brynn. But Brynn is also asking questions, and this is when she realizes this is the first time Messer has like looked serious in his life, according to Brynn, and he's pissed that she left him. And I didn't really cover this, but like Messer's father is abusive. Brynn has never really said anything, but like she's always kind of emotionally been there for him. So he's just pissed. Like he thought they were a lot closer than that she would just pack up and bounce without saying anything. Messer seems to know about magic. I mean, well, duh, he can turn into a bird. But specifically, he knows that Kai was using magic on Brynn. And he says Messer himself hated it, but he understood why Kai was doing it. Like, he knew that Kai hated it too, so he kind of kept his mouth shut. And Brynn decides this is okay because even though he is like technically abusing Brynn, right? Like manipulating her, all of this stuff, even though Messer didn't tell Brynn about this, Brynn is like, well, your dad hits you and I've never said anything. So we're equal now. We're even. Okay? So, but we're at an impasse because Acker wants to send this fucker to the dungeon. Brynn does not. We can't have him just walking around like a free man. And then Acker is just like, do you know anything about Hearthstone? Which triggers me because my husband is a gamer. And I do know about Hearthstone, in fact. Anyway, Messer is like, I don't know about Hearthstone. So Acker tells us, because this is exactly the time. It is something that is mined from deep in the earth, and it can create a weapon that can kill an heir's gift. It can get rid of magic, and also it will leave a scar that never heals. To which Acker is like this, and then he just stabs Messer. It's a gentle stab. It's more like a poke. Okay. Oh my God. I'm going to read this one verbatim. I think I have it verbatim here, but I just want to show you. I'm going to read it straight from the book, because here's another example of her writing style just like being so vague and being so kind of discombobulated that you can't really tell what she's talking about. Okay. So let me see. There are only 4 people other than myself who wear this mark, he explains. It's notorious amongst our enemies, considered a coveted trophy for many who hunt us. If you're caught outside Kenta territory, you'll be tortured for information you don't have before dying a slow death. Ren included. The way that this is outlined, saying Ren included at the end like that makes it odd, because are we saying that Ren is one of the only 4 people that has the mark, or Ren is one of our enemies that will hunt you for it, right? So for example, if I said, there are only 4 other people that have my birthmark. The kids at school made fun of me a lot for it. I like it because it's shaped like a strawberry. My brother included. Does my brother have the birthmark, or was my brother the friend that was making fun of me for having the birthmark? Like, it's... I know that this is an indie book. I know. But now it's going to be a traditionally published book. It was just recently announced, okay? And I mean this even for traditionally published books lately. We need better editors, and like, for us to all be okay with a poorly edited book. The publisher that has now picked up this book to be traditionally published, why would they put in any work to edit it when it is clearly flying off the shelves anyway, based on everyone's reaction to it? I just checked, it has a 98% liked for people on Google. It's at a 4.4 still, with like 40K reviews. Like, we're basically telling the publishing industry that we don't care about writing quality, and it just makes me really sad, because this is my favorite genre. I don't mean to do this like right in the middle of this book, but like, I'm so frustrated. We're allowing the publishing industry to just be lazy and like pick up these books that are not well written, put a little trad publishing thing on it, and send it out into the world without actually giving us a better quality product. You know, it's just, I'm frustrated, and I don't have a birthmark shaped like a strawberry, and I don't have a brother. So that was a trick question anyways. But what Acker is trying to say is that Ren, if he sees the mark on Messer, will kill him, because it's, I don't know why. But so now Messer's fucked. Like, if Messer wanted to betray them and desert them and go back to Alaha and tell them everything that he saw, he would be killed on sight. I feel like Acker's putting a lot of trust, a lot of faith into that little scar, but oh well. So it seems like the party's over, so everybody's starting to leave the tent, when all of a sudden Bo looks at Acker, looks at Brynn, looks at Acker, looks at Brynn, and she looks frightened, worried, shocked, a lot of things, okay? Acker gives her like the smallest, like, which Brynn sees, so like, wow, slick. Anyway, and apparently it takes her a moment for her to fix her face. And something tells me not a lot is able to ruffle Bo's outer shell, but whatever she just saw caught her off guard, and then they all leave. We're back. Later that night, we are setting up our sleeping arrangements. Brynn gets really embarrassed because she thought that she was going to be sleeping with Acker in his tent, because they're a little bit codependent by now. I feel like it's been months that they've been together. Not that we understand that, but they have been together for months on like this tiny boat. And I feel like she's like, but don't we always sleep in small places together? He's like, no, that wouldn't be a good look. And Brynn immediately jumps to like, oh my God, my crush is unrequited. I feel so stupid. Like, I have feelings for this hunka chunka man, but like, he doesn't feel it for me. But Acker quickly says, quote, once we're at the palace, I'll sleep wherever you want me to, whether it's on the floor or in the dirt or in your bed. I'll be there if you want me. Then they stare at each other for an uncomfortable amount of time, and he brings his mouth to hers. But no, wait a second, the angle is wrong. What's going on? Brynn is looking out of Acker's eyes, but she's not actually looking out of Acker's eyes. She's looking into his mind. Stick with me here, okay? Brynn isn't kissing Acker. She is seeing what Acker wishes was happening. He's like looking at her, imagining kissing her, and Brynn jumps into his brain and sees that. So that like doesn't continue to happen throughout the story. Like she doesn't read Acker's mind often. I think this might be the only example of her reading his mind. She usually just sees through his eyes, right? Like I taste breakfast when he eats it and things like that. So this is like convenient. It doesn't happen again. It's not explained. Magic system, what, you know? But once she realizes it, she snaps back into her body. She's like, oh my God, what's going on? And for some reason, she runs over to look in the mirror in the tent. I don't know why. And she realizes that her eyes are hazel. Now, 14 pages ago, they were blue. So, but if we go back even further, remember when Acker was talking about his true match and how she has hazel eyes, like every color of every season? She puts all this together, whips around, and she's like, how long have you known? Acker's just kind of like, ooh, shit. And then without him even saying anything, she does all of these mental leaps and realizes the mental thing that she keeps doing with Acker must be a match thing, like a mating bond related symptom. Can Acker read her mind too? Like, how did she literally just like looks at her face, is like, wow, hazel eyes. Acker's mate has hazel eyes. I've been having this weird mental thingy. Maybe it's like, how is she suddenly like, wow, I bet Acker knows how to read my mind? With Acker not saying a damn word, by the way. He's just standing there. Remember, he didn't even kiss her. Like, he was just like, I'll sleep wherever you want me to. And then they stare at each other, and she has a mental breakdown in this tent. Like, poor Acker, honestly. Eventually, he is allowed to speak, and he says, it's actually really hard for me to look into your mind. Not that he's trying, okay? It's similar to Brynn, how it's not something he can control. But he says the only time that he can see into her mind is when she fucking relaxes, which she doesn't do often. So he's like, it's kind of only when you're drawing. Like sometimes back when they were in the apartment, like when she would draw, he could see into her mind, okay? And in terms of the other thing, he's like, and I didn't want to tell you anything because I figured you'd figure it out yourself. Like I did, first of all, didn't know how you'd react. Poorly. Number two, I thought that after your awakening, you would feel it and I wouldn't have to say anything. Feel what? The mating bond, the match bond, excuse me. And she does. She can kind of feel like a little thingy. I don't know, in her stomach. I don't know. She feels it, but she does not want to. So she's like, end of conversation. Get out of my tent. Good night. The next day, they're a couple days from the palace, so they're figuring out like how to proceed. Apparently there's some kind of threat at the border and they don't know who to send to go check that out. So Messer volunteers. He's like, this is a great opportunity for me to prove my loyalty. Send me on this mission. I'm gonna go check the border, whatever. Send me with a couple other soldiers. I will do the dangerous job. And then he pulls kind of like, you know that one scene in Twilight where Edward is passing Bella off to Jacob for safety and Jacob is like, let me take off my shirt and show my muscles and like, look, I can hug her and you can't. And that's the vibe. Messer is going to turn into a bird again and he doesn't want to mess up his clothes, so he strips butt naked and hands Brynn his clothes and he's like, hold on to those for me, you know? He's trying to get a rise out of Acker and Acker is just standing there stoic. But okay, so now Messer's gone. Meanwhile, Acker, Bo, Hahlis, and Brynn are the team heading to the palace, okay? Apparently, two boys can't fit on the same horse. The pairing must be Acker has to ride with Brynn and Hahlis has to ride with Bo. There's some weird tension there, Hahlis and Bo, but off we go on our two horses. And by the way, Brynn does not want to be near Acker either, so why couldn't she just be like, can I please ride with Hahlis? I didn't write this book. Everything is going as fine as it possibly can be with like two grumpy pairings on two horses, right? Until it starts to rain and they pull over. Acker's like, let's make camp. Let's not go through this rain. Hahlis is like, you big fat baby, like we're in a rush. This isn't that much rain. We can push through it. And that is when we overhear a conversation between Acker and Hahlis that might shed some light on why we are stalling. And Hahlis is basically like, we are in the middle of a war. A war is about to start. And You are holding us back because you don't want to get to the palace and have her run off to her mommy, because they're bringing Brynn back to Acker's palace, right? But why wouldn't she want to go back to her home and see her mother that she's been separated from for years? And Highness is basically insinuating that Acker isn't ready to give her up and isn't ready to send her home, and he wants Brynn to stay with him, so that's why he is like really not wanting to get home anytime soon. Highness also brings up that the bond isn't like a rock solid thing. So she could reject it if she wanted to. They are not fated mates, according to Highness. And Acker's sort of like, you need to chill out, but I really do love her. Like, I'm not manipulating her. I love her. Yes, I might be stalling, but like, it's from love. To which Highness says, okay, you might want to let her know that you're engaged before you get to the palace. Brynn is overhearing this, right? When she hears this, she gasps, kind of stumbles, makes a little noise, and Acker immediately realizes she's there. She was doing this kind of like ghost thing. She didn't mean to, but like she just happened to find herself with Acker and Highness, like kind of hidden from view in almost this ghostly state. It's another part of her weird powers. We're gonna get into it, but yeah, she often finds herself now, instead of in Acker's body, just like near Acker's body. Okay, so that's why she was listening in. She just found herself there. And now she heard that Acker's engaged, not to her. Acker is super paranoid, and he immediately switches from like, Highness, you shut the fuck up, I love her, to being like, you are a little conniving bitch. I bet you've had like tricks up your sleeve since I met you in the market, blah, blah, blah. When did you learn that you had this power to sneak around? Like going into Brynn, basically being like, you're a traitor, you're weird, you've got cooties, and not the devastatingly handsome kind of cooties. And Brynn is sort of like, you brought Beau, your sister, personal lie detector, and she has no problem with me. So maybe you should like take a step back. I'm the one in this situation who should be angry, and you've got some explaining to do. To which, to his credit, Acker immediately does. Basically, he was engaged to Brynn when they were little. That's why they like hung out as kids, because he would come and visit her to like help the marriage, the inevitable marriage happen, whatever. They were kids, they were royalty, whatever. She disappears. They wait 6 years and she doesn't come back. And a prince has got to be engaged. Like that's his shtick, right? Gotta get married. So he is then engaged to another princess of Strow? I don't know. And he still is, but he's like, I'm gonna call it off. Now that I've found you, you called dibs first, girlie. You were my first bride. Don't worry about it. I just didn't tell you because, once again, you're gonna freak out. They have a little bit of a screaming match that devolves into a makeout sesh, a little hot and heavy. I think this is like the first time they've properly kissed. They have like a really angry, honestly, the vocabulary is very violent. Like their kissing is more like another form of fighting. But eventually Brynn like shoves him off and is like, fuck you, I don't trust you, you're manipulating me. And Acker is basically like, yeah, okay, that's fine, me too. And they go to separate tents. We finally made it to like the border of the capital, like the suburbs. Let's just say they're going to stay here for the night. They're also going to be hiding their identities because we don't want to cause a hubbub, the prince walking around, you know? So they're just acting like Joe Schmo. They walk into the first and only inn that they find, pay for some rooms, one for the girls, one for the boys. They go out, I don't know, going for a walk, what have you. When they come back from their walk, they realize that the inn is actually a brothel. So they're staying in a brothel, which like isn't a huge deal, but also their rooms only have one bed, which isn't a problem because Brynn and Beau can bunk and Highness and Acker can bunk. And also this isn't very scandalous because have they not been spending a month and a half sleeping together on a fishing boat? Different circumstances, whatever. However, trouble starts pretty much immediately. The girls stay up and they're like kind of drinking, chatting, whatever. They fall asleep. Everything's fine. Then Brynn wakes up as a ghost in Acker's room. We've stopped the whole seeing through Acker's eyes, and now we're just next to Acker, okay? Before she can even really register where she is, Acker grabs her, pins her to the bed, and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Highness turns to Acker and is like, what the fuck are you doing? Because Acker is the only one that can see or hear Brynn. He like makes Brynn talk and Highness is like, I don't hear anything. So That's handy. It just looks like Acker is pinning a ghost to the bed. And Brynn is trying to explain herself. She's like, listen, we were just like drinking, having a good time. Like maybe it's because of how much we drank. Like I'm doing this weird drunk ghost thing. And Acker immediately tells Hahah to go check on Bo, because apparently Bo doesn't drink unless she's kind of struggling, because as someone with her power, she is oftentimes just overwhelmed by the emotions that she has to deal with. Hahah immediately is like, I'll go check on her. I've got it. Don't worry. Bo has, I think, actually come into the room. I'm not exactly sure how this scene plays out, but we do see Hahah hugging Bo because Bo is clearly distressed. And Hahah is like, it's okay. I've got you. Let me go back to your room. You know, I'll help you go to sleep. So yeah, something's going on there. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is how we finagle ourselves into a there's only one bed trope, because Hahah needs to nurse Bo back to health in private. So Acker and Brynn get to be bunk buddies. But Acker lets us know nothing's gonna happen tonight because Brynn Jovi needs her sleep. And Acker is basically like, regardless of the bond, it's a sure thing that you're gonna sleep with me. And Brynn is like, what? Acker says, don't worry, Jovi. I'm going to court you so well, you'll be begging to climb into bed with me. And she goes to sleep. I think they cuddle, you know, they like spoon, and she drifts off to sleep. The next morning, she awakens to an empty bed. She doesn't like that, or rather her bond doesn't like that. She feels uncomfy being far from Acker. So that's weird. She spends the morning being kind of irritable. She says hi to Hahah, but she's just kind of moping around until Acker finally shows up and he's like, okay, everything's set. We're ready to go to the palace today. And he immediately notices that she's not feeling too good. He can like feel it through the bond that she's irritable. And apparently she is just reliving the moments of their cuddle party last night. He can feel the bond, quote, throbbing as she is reliving their intense spooning. And in order to help her with that irritability, he just leans down and licks her neck, just like slurp. And they get on their horses. What is happening? I just don't know. They end up getting intercepted on the way to the palace by someone named General Samasu, and he works for Brynn's mom. He is like the head general of Melee, and he's like, yeah, we are taking Brynn Jovi, I guess he calls her Jovi, back to her home. Acker is like, does the princess have any say in this? And the general is like, actually no. So come on Jovi, off we trot. Question number 1, why isn't Brynn jumping at the bit to meet her mom? Just saying. Okay, but Acker is like, actually, you can't separate me from her because Brynn is my match. And the general seems really surprised by this. And he's like, okay, prove it. I don't know. I have no emotional attachment because I know that this scene is going to be over in like 1 page. So yeah, the general is like, prove it. And Acker is like, okay. And he takes a blade, slices him and Jovi's hand. They hold it together. And he says a really weird vow. He says, and I quote, Giovannina, whatever her name is, Princess of Melee, is my match. With this oath, I swear to protect her until my dying breath, and I love her. Just like tacks that on. Brynn doesn't know what's going on, but Hahah sure does. And he looks pissed that this is going on. But Brynn just kind of finds it romantic. All she heard is like, wow, he loves me. So Brynn kisses him while everyone else is like, you fucking idiot. The general actually says, wow, you're a fool, but possibly the bravest man I've ever met. We don't learn the significance of this until later, but he's essentially making a blood oath, but like a level up, in which if he's lying about anything he just said, both him and the person he took the oath with dies. So all right. Anyway, that basically convinces the general, and for some reason that's like enough for him to not take her. I don't know. So he's basically like, hey, contact me in 2 weeks and we'll come pick you up and welcome home and bye. Also, as he's walking away, the general mutters to himself, dang rabbits, and leaves. Remember that catchphrase that we haven't heard for like 200 pages? Okay. And just like that, we make it to the capital. We are in sight of the palace. Once we get into town, remember we're on our horses. We're parading through the streets. I don't know how everybody got the news so quickly, but they're out. They're excited to wave to the prince. Everyone seems to love Acker. So it's great. It's great vibes until someone screams, "Burn the witch!" And tomatoes start flying.
The cliffs of insanity!
Yes, vegetables and fruits coming at all angles. People are screaming. They're saying like, oh, she's cursed. Get her out of here. We hate her. Burn the witch, blah, blah, blah. They manage to get inside the palace. And before Brynn can even really register what just happened, she is brought before the king. Acker has to go stand next to Daddy Dearest. And she has to like bow and say hey to the king with like no prep. Okay, the king seems really nice, which is usually a red flag, I feel like. He's like, oh, my boy, Acker, I'm so glad you're home. And he mentions that Jovi has grown into a beautiful princess. And even though they want to get to work right away, because remember, they just kind of low-key started a war, the king is just sort of like, can you hold on? Let's talk about this tomorrow. You're covered in schlop. Right? Like, you are covered in vegetables. I don't want to talk to you. Please get out of my throne room. Go take a bath. We'll talk about this tomorrow. And this whole time, Brynn is just being kind of shuffled around. Honestly, this whole book, other than Brynn like saving their lives with the dark forest, this whole book is just Brynn being shuffled through, not being told shit, and just having stuff happen to her where she's like, ah, I burnt my clothes up. Ah, my best friend is a bird. Ah, like she has so far done nothing. Like other than the very first action of like breaking Acker out and running away from home, she's just been like dragged, confused this whole time. She just kind of like Jim from The Office style turns and looks at the camera and she's just like, what the fuck?
Here we go. Cindy!
And you have reached 3/4 of the book. We are at 75%. Are you ready for the last bit? In we go. Brynn is shown to her bedroom. She's like, that was fucking weird. She takes a bath. It's great. She has not had like hot water in a very long time, so she is like testing out the soaps, enjoying this luxurious experience. Gets out of the bathtub and then almost dies from shock because Bo is just sitting in one of her armchairs.
Oh my god, you guys are here!
How did you get here?
How did you get here?
And how are you dry?
How are you dry?
Brynn's soul nearly leaves her body and she just goes, dang rabbits. We're back in business, baby. The dang rabbits are back. Bo is like, oh, I'm so glad I scared you because that was a lesson. Bo is like, I want you to never let your guard down in this palace. And Brynn is like, okay, thank you. Where was Bo, by the way? She kind of disappeared when they went into the throne room to see the king. Bo apparently, quote, had to deal with the farmer who believed you were a place to discard his rotten produce. AKA the guy who started the whole like, let's throw tomatoes at Brynn thing. Brynn is like, what do you mean you took care of him? And Bo is like, oh, you'll see. So now apparently Bo is in charge of babysitting Brynn because it will show that Brynn isn't scary and they're friends and thus this is great and Brynn is nice. But everyone is scared of Bo, low-key. So like, I don't know what kind of message we're trying to send here. Anyway, as we're having this conversation, Brynn is getting dressed. She's got a whole new wardrobe that happens to fit her perfectly in her closet. As she's getting dressed, she pulls on, quote, the softest underwear to ever grace my bottom. That's for damn sure. Butter underwear. Brynn says she doesn't really want to go to dinner. She just kind of wants to rest. So Bo is like, okay, I will see you tomorrow. And as she's walking out, Brynn yells after her, bring more underwear. When Brynn finally falls asleep, she dreams of rabbits. Quote, lots and lots of rabbits. They reach for the food in my hands and the sound of their munches brings a smile to my face. And then suddenly she's like looking at the dream rabbits and then she looks up and she is downstairs at dinner where she didn't want to be, but she's having one of her little ghost strolls. She looks down. She is only dressed in her butter underwear. So that's a choice. And she's like, while I'm down here, you know what? I've got some things to say to Acker. She's got a long list of grievances. So when she finds him, she gives him a piece of her mind. She's like, you did not protect me from those tomatoes. You just like paraded me through town and allowed that to happen. Like we could have gone in a carriage, something more secure. Like I have already been shot with an arrow and almost killed before. Why are we just like waltzing around? Acker pulls her into a corridor and with his lips to her ears says, I'm a starving man, Jovi. Don't appear without clothes again, or I'll make you finally confront the desire you've been so determined to pretend doesn't exist between us. And then he's like, you should go wake up now, and like pats her to the stairs to go back to her bedroom. And she's like, okay, this is weird. She's like walking around in her underwear. She's looking around the castle and there's rabbits everywhere. They're multiplying. She's like, this is the weirdest fucking dream. She picks up one of the rabbits and she's like, oh, what a sweet little baby. She's like tickling its tummy. And then it opens its mouth and it has these like terrifying fangs. And then she blinks and she's in a greenhouse covered in snow, which by the way, we've been traveling now for 2 months. What season is it? Anyway, she's in a greenhouse. It's covered in snow. When someone says her name and she finally wakes up, right? She was like in a dream, in a dream, in a dream. So now she is like awake. Okay. She's in her room. She looks around and somehow as she was like walking through the palace, going back up to her room as a ghost, and got distracted by that rabbit, somehow Acker ran fast enough to beat her there, and he is now standing in her room in his underwear that is also probably made of butter. They immediately get into bed and they are getting to know each other. When Brynn brings it up again, she's like, I'm still pissed at you about flaunting me through the streets like that. Again, she's like, you could have made me get here safely in a carriage. And his thought process is, I don't want to hide you. He says, I'm not ashamed of you. Quote, I wasn't going to put you in a carriage like a disgraced secret. And then we fade to black. The next morning, we fully embraced the PDA. Okay, whatever went down last night, they have no problem like sneaking cute kisses in front of family members. Like it's aware that they're matched. They're not hiding it anymore. But apparently that's all that they've been doing is like cute cuddles at night. Kissy kiss, that kind of thing. So that's the phase that they're in, is just cutesy couple. It's not all cutesy though, because Bo lets us in on a secret. Once she gets Brynn alone, she lets us know that the king, there he is. Oh, King Edmund. I didn't introduce him. The king. So yeah, the king actually wanted, when she arrived, he wanted her put in a collar, in a suppressor, because she doesn't know how to use her powers, control them, whatever. And he was like, why don't we just nip that one in the bud and put a collar on her? And Acker said no. But apparently everybody's afraid of her because of her whole like light wielder thing. I don't know. That hence the tomatoes, the collar. Bo gives her a little tour of the palace. She requests that she wants to go to the library. This is where we learn that Bo is actually Acker's half sister. Their dad is King Edmund, but they have different moms. And her mom is Greta. Greta is now the official librarian of the palace. She just seems like goofy and fun. She also has a meltdown because the reason why Brynn wanted to visit a library is because she's never seen one before. Alaha doesn't have one. And apparently, quote, this horrifies Greta profoundly, absolutely horrifies her. While they're in the library, we get a quick glimpse of another young lady walking through. She is Irina, I don't know, the Princess of Strow, Acker's betrothed. She's in the palace. We didn't know she was going to be here. Brynn certainly didn't know she was going to be here. And Acker probably should have shared that with her. So she's pissed off at him once again. But Acker has a really great excuse. Like later that night when he comes into her bedroom, she's ready to rip into him. And he's like, listen, hey, I didn't know she was going to be here. She was at the dinner. Like I came downstairs to go to dinner that first night and there she was. And I was going to tell you, but you seemed already pretty pissed at me and I didn't want to push my luck and I really just wanted to cuddle with you. So I just didn't tell you.
Baby, my teeny tiny baby girl.
Why do you always have to flirt with other women?
It doesn't count if they're not in high school.
And that pisses her off even more, right? She's like, oh, okay, so you don't think I can handle being mad about two things at once? And this is when Acker reminds her that her magic is tied to her emotions, and he thinks she's getting a little overworked. So why don't I tie you down? I hate men. He ties her to the bed, and he will not let her go until, quote, You're being reasonable. This is supposed to be like a little sexy, like she's tied to the bed, he sneaks a couple kisses, and once she apparently calms down, he's like, listen, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you, but you know, I've got a surprise. This maybe will cheer you up. I've got some friends in the city. We're gonna get out of the palace. We're gonna have a cool meal with like normal people. How does that sound? I'll untie you if you're good. And he also says that she's very cute when she's jealous. Now we finally get to Acker's friend's house, and this is where we meet Wells and Olivia. These are super typical friend characters. They are so welcoming and charming and attractive and just like warm and loving. The second they walk in, Olivia's a little like over the top. She immediately is like trying to hug Brynn, and she's been told to calm down because like she can be a lot, and she's just like so excited for this. You know, this is great. So it's just nice. They prepared a little dinner. They're sitting down. There's some alcohol. It's lovely. And then Brynn picks up a string bean and she's like, damn, you guys get them really green here. And everyone's just kind of like, what? So Brynn is like, in Alaha, remember, Kenta controls their food supply. So she's like, we usually get like either kind of rotten or dehydrated, freeze-dried vegetables. Like, never seen a fresh bean like this before. This is amazing. Everyone goes silent for a second because that's rough. And then they immediately are just like, how's your blacksmithing going? And oh, Olivia, your herb garden looks amazing. Like they just, that's that. Okay, next.
What was the last beach you went to?
Oh, fun fact about the beach, I read this.
Yeah.
Beaches are actually some of the filthiest places in the whole world. Just a sandbox of disease. And...
Peter, do not say disease at the dinner table.
They don't talk about alaha at all. Eventually, the conversation turns to how is Brynn enjoying the palace, being in Kenta? And Brynn was like, oh, I'm like, it's nice other than that pretty rocky welcome I had, to which Wells waves a dismissive hand. And he's just like, oh, don't worry, like Acker's father hunted down every last one of them. They're hanging from the walls as we speak, so I doubt you'll have any more issues with the naysayers. Acker kind of like shifts awkwardly in his seat, and rather than continuing down that line of like, what do you mean they're hanging from the walls? He just kind of goes like, well, I have an announcement. I didn't want to say anything earlier, but Jovi and I, we're matched. Yes, everyone is elated. It is a happy, happy day. Apparently, Olivia knew Acker and Brynn when they were kids. She was like part of nobility, but then she married Wells, who was like beneath her as a blacksmith. So she was like excommunicated from her family. She used to hang out with them as kids, as like the young royals did. So she was like, I knew it. Like even when I was little, I knew you guys were matched. This is amazing. And we learn like a couple weird things about the matching bond. Basically, the matching bond is only supposed to occur between two people who have magic. Olivia and Wells don't. So that's rare, but they're kind of like, actually it isn't. Like that's just sort of a common misconception. Like no one really knows how matching bonds work. And also, one thing we do know though is that if you don't accept the bond fast enough, it's gonna force you together. Hence Brynn's weird dreams, where she literally cannot stay away from Acker. That is the bond's doing, and she needs to accept the bond or whatever. And apparently if she doesn't, she will stay in that dream. Like she won't be able to wake up. She will stay in that dream until she accepts the bond. So the whole part about like you can reject it, I don't know. We also get like a weird comment from Olivia where they're talking about how like Olivia and Wells, their marriage was looked down upon. And Acker like mentioned something of like, oh yeah, you know, don't worry, Olivia, like I'm talking to my dad about that. I really want to change that. And Olivia just goes, and how's that going, Acker? Okay. Anyway, we get into the carriage to ride home. Brynn is like, listen, I know that you love me and we're matched and I'm pretty happy about that, but you've lied to me. I'm not ready to accept this bond, blah, blah, blah. Acker is like, I get it. I'm going to win your trust, etc. When the carriage driver, I believe his name is Harold, he's basically like,
Princess, look out the window
and welcome to Genovia.
I look out the window and see the arching gates to the palace up ahead. It's easier to take in since we're not barging through at breakneck speeds like before, and I'm able to get a clear view of those cages hanging along the palace walls. I realize what I thought were animals are not animals at all. They're people. People hanging from cages from the walls of the palace. Next page. No, we're not going to hear any more about it. They're training. It skips to like a couple days later and they're like at the train. They're going to have like a cute little sword lesson. Does Brynn not have any thoughts about this? Like, I know nothing about this girl. Anyway, next day, next chapter. I don't know how many days have passed actually, but we continue on. We have a little trading session where we basically just oogle Acker because he's good with swords. Brynn is really out of shape, apparently. We also see a very young boy who is apparently going to be publicly executed because he didn't tell the king that he had powers, and that's illegal. And we just kind of like brush over that, but just like, so you know. A little bit later, Brynn Jovi is having an ice bath because she is in a lot of pain. And Bo is just kind of sitting with her, like they're just chatting while she bathes. Brynn decides to try and use her like ghosty power, I don't know, man, to somehow contact her mom. It somehow works. She focuses enough that like she gets to see her mom for 10 seconds, basically just enough for her mom to say, "Joe," and that's it. So that's weird. Like, why hasn't she asked a single damn question about her mom, by the way? And why is no one like interested in returning her to her mom? Why is no one wondering why Brynn isn't asking about her mom? You know, like, I don't know. Once again, like, these people don't act like humans. This is a girl who has been kidnapped, hasn't seen her mom in 13 years, and no one is like, gee, first order of business, do you want to hang out with these random people you don't know in a town where people throw tomatoes at you? Or do you want to go see your mom? Anyway, so yeah, that happens. She sees her mom's face. They apparently look identical. So there's that. Afterwards, we are reading a book that we got from the library about matching bonds because she wants to know more about it because it's really like doing a number on her. Things that we learn. There are many kinds of bonds, and going back, remember when I said that Acker made that weird blood oath, would have killed the people that, like, everyone if he was lying? That is called a blood bond. So he did one of those. And that's when she realizes, even though he's said it before, I'm pretty sure, she overheard him say it to Hahah for sure. She knows that he couldn't be lying. Like, he's not manipulating her. He did a blood oath and said that he loves her. Okay, so that contributes to my 3 favorite sentences in the entire book. Okay, she kind of giggles and she says, "Acker loves me. Acker loves me. Acker loves me." End of chapter, followed by the next 3 best lines in the book. No. All right, why is she saying no? The girl decides to take 2 baths. She took her ice bath. She chatted with Bo. Bo leaves. She's like, wow, now I'm cold. Let me take a hot bath. She gets in. She kind of dozes off. And she wakes up doing her weird ghost walk thing. Again. Naked.
From the creators of Naked and Afraid. It's
Metal Slinger. Butt naked. Shows up in a meeting room. Acker is at like this long table filled with dignitaries going over something, like some, I don't know, government meeting. This is where, when I did my live reaction to this and I mentioned that they were having ghost sex and everyone was like, record scratch, like what? Welcome to the ghost sex section of the book. 87% in case you're interested. So she arrives in the meeting room fully naked. Acker immediately is just like, come sit on my lap. So we get a whole scene of him like whispering in her ear. She's on his lap. He is like pressing his cold glass to various parts of her body. How is no one noticing that their prince is acting like this? Like, again, no one can see her. Imagine he's sitting at a table with enough room that there's a body on his lap and he's just like, what? Like, he's the head of this meeting. All right. So anyway, she decides that she's going to test his concentration. So she's like licking him. There's a lot of licking in this book. There's also a lot of grinding. It starts to get really hot and heavy when all of a sudden the king walks in. That though, that doesn't stop them. They're kind of like, ooh, that's weird. And then just continue. Like she is like, thank God nobody can hear her because she's, you know, the only thing that makes them pause is when a servant runs in and is like, something's wrong with Brynn. You gotta come check. Acker gets up so fast that ghost Brynn like literally falls to the ground. It turns out that Bo came back in, like Bo just walks in and out of Brynn's bathroom like it's no big deal. She came to check on Brynn and Brynn is like asleep in the bathtub and Bo is trying to wake her up. She's not waking up. She also says that Brynn's aura looked really weird, so she summoned Acker. Acker gets there, they splash some water on her, she wakes up, Acker explains what's happening, and then Acker storms out, really angry again. Brynn wakes up in the bathtub and Acker is so pissed that he excuses himself. He just storms out. Do you want to know why he's pissed? Do you want to know why? She almost like drowned in the bathtub and he's angry. Let me tell you. Basically, a couple hours later, Bo shows Brynn like this secret passageway in the castle so that she can visit Acker privately. And when she gets to Acker's room, he lets her know that he's mad because he was, quote, robbed of the first time I get to lay eyes on you. What does that mean? He's mad that he couldn't put all of his concentration on her naked body. He was like, I was in a meeting. I wasn't able to fully enjoy your naked body. And I'm pissed that that was robbed from me. And she's sort of like, you know, I've burnt my clothes off in front of you multiple times. You've seen me in my butter underwear. Like, why are you so upset? Like, he's raging. He says that didn't count. He said, this time I had to pretend like I was doing other things. Like he was at a dinner meeting. He couldn't enjoy the fact that, quote, my match was bare before me. She's trying not to say mate so hard. They go back and forth. They're yelling. Brynn eventually lets it slip that she also loves Acker, like surprise, and that she may or may not have loved him since they were on that stupid boat. She's like, if you don't believe me, I'll do one of those weird blood bond thingies again. Like, test me. I'd love to. And Acker is like, don't even joke about that. Like, I'm the only one stupid enough to do those things. And then, surprise, we get a steamy scene. They finally do the deed. And afterwards, Brynn says, I'm not sure I've ever experienced true peace in my life until now. And when she turns to look at Acker, he's crying. Like, it was that emotional for them both. So here we are. Next chapter, I told you, this is the ghost sex arc of the story. Next chapter, we're in the library. Brynn is looking at books, as one does, and all of a sudden behind her, she just hears someone go like, yes, I did it. She turns around and apparently Acker has been trying to figure out how to do the ghost thingy, and he did it. He's here. He's in the library. Pushes her up against the shelves and they bang. Remember, he's invisible to everyone else. So if you can just picture poor Greta, if she were to walk around that corner, oh, what a sight that would have been. Anyway, he like disappears afterwards. He's like, bye, that was fun. She goes to the checkout counter to check out her books and Greta just gives her a look. Like, yeah, that wasn't as subtle as you might have thought. So we go back to her room. She's reading. She's trying to read up on like the history of the world. And once her head is too full of facts, she decides, you know what I haven't done in a really long time? I haven't doodled. Let me break out the sketchbook. Just to like clear her mind, right? Because as Acker has said, that is the only time that she seems to like have a calm mind. So as she's drawing, she's just thinking and she says, quote, truth be told, I don't know if I loved Kai. I mean, I know I loved him. Do love him, but I didn't love him. Okay. She also says that she's never felt what she has felt for Acker. And she says, I know if there comes a point where I'm forced to leave Acker, it has the potential to ruin me. And before we get any more into that line of thought, Acker's ghost appears and he's like super sweaty and he's like, come find me. And disappears. And we go to the training room and train. More time passes. Who knows how much? No one knows how much time. But we are back in the library because Greta has found something that Brynn has been kind of looking for. And it's records regarding Brynn's parents. So Brynn's mom's name is Evelyn, which we knew. And also, by the way, she has never tried to contact her mom again. The whole like ghostly transportation powers is devoted solely to having sex with Acker, not contacting her mom. So that's weird. Yeah, they're identical. Her element is air. So we're looking at a book of like records of royals and whatever. So yeah, her element is air. And Brynn is like, that's cool. We don't know what that means. But that's cool. Thank you, Greta. What about my dad? And Greta's like, ooh, your dad's not in that book. He didn't have any powers. Greta says their love story is actually quite romantic. And she's surprised that Acker hasn't told Brynn, like, what do you guys talk about? Do you have any of those couples that you look at and you're like, do they have anything to talk about? Right? That's how I feel about these two. I'm like, what do you do? Like, do you have conversations? Have you spoken to each other ever? Anyway, so yeah, she's like, oh, Acker didn't tell you? That's interesting. Let me tell you. So, Princess Evelyn falls in love with her appointed guard. Tell me that story. That's what I want to hear. And that's her mom and dad, okay? Brynn decides to look through the book a little bit more, and she finds King Edmund, who is a fire elemental. Whatever that means. Again, we don't know what any of this shit means. But the picture in the book, for some reason, like Acker's mom is in the background, and she kind of leans in and she's like, what the fuck? Greta, do you have another picture of this lady? So she like flips through the book to try and find Acker's mom, the queen. And remember, his mom has passed away, by the way. So when she finds another picture, she sees a smile full of mischief. Actually, it's pretty condescending. And she just looks at it again and she's like, no, that's not possible. Because who's in the photo? Who is Acker's mom? Her grouchy fucking neighbor, Grenadine. What? Brynn is suddenly like, holy I need to tell Acker. And she zaps into Acker's room. She doesn't get to talk to him though, because she accidentally interrupts the king talking to Acker. And again, she's a ghost, so only Acker can see her. And the king is basically telling Acker, like, listen, you can name Brynn as your consort or whatever, but you are marrying the Princess of Stroud. Like, we're not going back on this. You're gonna marry Irina. And Acker's pretty valiantly fighting. He's like, but I love her. Like, I can't do, like, Dad, I'm not backing down from this one. And eventually the king basically says, if you don't obey me, I have a multitude of ways to make sure you never see your match again. And she just zaps herself back to the library. Anyway, the next day or a day, you know the drill. Time. Who knows? We are having a welcome ball for Brynn, who has been here for potentially weeks, like unknown amount of time. Why has it taken so long to organize a welcome ball for her? Unclear, but we're doing it tonight. We get a cute moment of they're all kind of getting ready for the ball. Hallis and Bo are helping. When Brynn kind of leans over to Hallis and is like, does Bo know? And Hallis is like, know what? To which Brynn says that you're like in love with her? Hallis doesn't even miss a beat. He's just like, ugh, yeah, he knows he's obvious. But he's like, honestly, Bo thinks everyone's in love with her. So yeah, I'd put money on, yeah, she knows. She knows. Hallis is supposed to be escorting Brynn, but Acker intercepts them before they get to the ball. And he is going to escort her. But this is really bad because remember, he's engaged to Princess of Stroud. Escorting Brynn would be a clear signal of like who he has chosen, right? And his daddy, as we know, not down with that. So in they go, ready to cause chaos. But everyone loves Acker. So when he walks into the ballroom, it is like, yes, we love it. Like everyone is screaming, supportive, lovely. The king can't say anything. It's too public and he has too much support. So they go to sit down, really awkward because Brynn sits next to Acker at this like long banquet table. That seat is supposed to be for Irina and her parents, right? Like they're all supposed to sit next to her fiance. And so when she walks in a little bit later, she just kind of like awkwardly stands there like, and has to leave. How sad, you know? And so now for our last chapter, we have a flashback. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the final 2 chapters of this fucking garbage book. I'm sorry. My feet hurt. I've been standing here for a long time talking about this. I regret doing this, but sunken cost fallacy. I'm here. I'm going to finish it. Our second to last chapter. It takes place the morning after the storm in Alaha. So he is in her apartment now, okay? The next morning, as she is, I guess when she's like running down to get food. It's unclear when this occurs. But anyway, this is a conversation between Brynn and Kai. Brynn tells Kai that she broke Acker out of prison. And Kai is reasonably like, what the fuck do you mean you broke our prisoner out of prison? She says, he was going to die. And Kai says, yes, Brynn, that was the plan. They were basically just going to put his body in that boat and put it out to sea and be like, oops, he was caught in a storm. It was an accident. Rest in peace, soldier boy. And Brynn is like, okay, but hear me out, Kai. And hear her out, guys. Here we go. Your father made him give a blood oath not to reveal my true identity to me. He's completely convinced I'm in the dark about everything. Convinced I've been sheltered from the truth of my magic and my bloodline. If I can convince Acker that I'm naive, he'll take me back to land with him. Kai is like, wow, this is a bullshit plan. And Brynn is like, listen, I haven't even tapped into my magic yet. I might be super powerful. You know, like if he brings me back to his palace, who knows? I might be able to just zap the king just by snapping my fingers. Wouldn't that be great? And Acker believes that Brynn has been manipulated her whole life by Kai and Ren. And she's like, I can milk that baby till the cows come home. He thinks I'm this little victim. Perfect. Let him think that. And she's like, so I'm going to need you, Kai, to use your powers on me, or at least act like it. He believes you influenced me to fall in love with you. So let's just reaffirm his judgment. Kai is immediately like, that's disgusting. I would never use my magic on you. Like, how could you even think about that? I don't want to do it. And Brynn is like, but it's such a good story. So that's the chapter. Okay, this is why I say it's important that this book is in first person and we see her thoughts and feelings, because I've already seen people going back and being like, look, she never actually said anything, which I think gets more clear like the further into the book you get. Like she gets a little bit more suspicious, but in the beginning of the book a lot of things don't actually track, and it could be written off as just shitty writing because this author writes in this vague, poorly written way where we don't know if time has passed, we don't know XYZ. So there's no difference to, is it the bad writing of the author or is it Brynn intentionally being vague? There's no way to tell, and it's just not fun. Like it's a cheap twist. Like if you can suddenly, I've read a couple, there's no spoilers, but there's like another popular YA fantasy that does this exact formula, and it's just, I think that book actually did it a lot better. I hated it, but they on a writing level did it a lot better. There's so much happening off the page that the reader isn't privy to. It was not built up well enough, and because I feel so out of the loop with everything, like I never felt like I understood a single fucking thing that happened in this book. So for there to suddenly be a twist, I'm like, well, that's just another thing I don't fucking understand. I don't know how the magic works. I don't know how the royal system works. I don't even know how fucking Kenta works. So for there to suddenly be like, oh my god, everything you knew is wrong, it's like, well, that's not a huge thing because I didn't know anything, you know? I was enraged. Anyway, let's go back to the final chapter. We're back in the present. We're back at the ball. We're dancing. We're kissing. It's lovely. It's romantic. And then he asks her to marry him. What is up with this girl and getting proposed to on the dance floor? So he's like, marry me. And she says, I love you. Without you, I'd still be an alaha. And now look at me. He's like, yeah, tell me about it. She's like, you are so drunk. And no, he's not drunk. He's been poisoned. So he and the entire rest of the ballroom drop to the ground. As Acker stumbles, Brynn whips a collar out of her pocket. I don't know, she's wearing a dress with pockets. That's cool. Puts a collar on him, a suppressor, so that he can't use his powers. Bo comes out of nowhere, ties him to a chair with this metal whip that has like spikes in it, so if he moves, it digs into his skin. Soldiers start running in, but apparently Messer is one of them, so once they get close, he just like kills all the soldiers. He like pushes up his soldier mask and he's like, hey girls, and then kills everybody. 'Cause you had a bad day. So now it's just Messer, Brynn, Bo, and Acker that are still conscious. Okay, the poison, I think the poison hasn't killed anybody. I think they're just sleeping. I don't know. Anyway, here's what Brynn wants. She like swoops in real close to Acker and she's like, all right, girl, I'm gonna make you a deal you can't refuse. She's like, I want your father's crown. She's like, that's it. Thanks. She says, quote, you were so dead set on Ren being evil, on Kai manipulating me, that you never considered the real truth, that I'm the bad guy. She tells us that the king of Kenta is intentionally starving the people of Alaha to prompt them to rebel and come to land and start a war. King Edmund wants Ren to seem like the aggressor. Okay? To which Acker is like, okay, but you know, clearly, you already knew that you're Princess of Melee. So why couldn't you just go there and bring your people of Alaha there and protect them? And she just says, I can't do that. She's just like, no, that doesn't work for me. She says, I have space for the young and the old and the people who can't fight. And that's it. Which, like, what does that mean? Nothing. I have no context for the world. I have no context. So, like, what does she mean that she doesn't have room? It's just so stupid. And Acker is like, okay, but what was wrong with you being my queen? Like, I literally just asked you to marry me and you want my dad's throne. Like, okay, you got it. And like, why is everyone dead? Why did you poison everybody? And Brynn basically was like, your dad's gonna take too long to die. So I had to take action into my own hands. She says that they are working on an alliance with Royson, which is the country that borders Kenta, and remember their enemies, I guess. So Royson is going to ally with Melee and Alaha because she's Princess of Melee, whatever. And then peace on earth. You will be head of Kenta. This will be great. Don't you think? And so one of my biggest issues here is that Brynn is really confident that Acker is going to be a good king. Like, she's willing to risk everything just to put this fucker on the throne when he seems to be a pretty weak and ineffective prince, right? Like, he can't stand up to his dad. He doesn't question the whole, like, I've never seen a green string bean in my life thing. He just changes the subject. He doesn't seem to question that there are people in cages, that there are little boys that are being publicly executed. Like, and she never asks him stuff. Remember when I'm like, I would assume that you would ask more questions? She doesn't ask him anything about like his thoughts, his leadership skills. You're just assuming that this fucker can rule a country. How is he not going to be worse than his dad? Anyway, she also realizes immediately, like apparently just now, right? Because Bo notices something about his aura. So I don't think this was something that she knew beforehand, but she's pretty sure that King Edmund, is the one with the power of persuasion. And he's been manipulating Acker this whole time. Anyway, she stabs the king a couple times where she thinks his magic is located with, I assume, with the Hearthstone to like kill his gift. And he's not dead, but the wound is definitely fatal unless they find a healer in time. And you know in book 2, they're gonna find a healer in time. Anyway, chaos ensues. Somehow, while Brynn is stabbing his dad, Acker breaks free. He chases Brynn into the kitchens, makes out with her, and then slaps her across the face. Go, he shouts, before I kill us both. My chest caves as my heart finishes cleaving in two. I leave him, and I don't look back. All right, that's the end. So I think I've stated my piece about why I think that this is a cheap and stupid twist. And this is why I think that people are being like, oh my God, that ending is amazing. Because she just wrote this conveniently shittily, for lack of a better word. Like, reading this a second time in order to make this plot summary video, I can see how she's gonna get around it. She can basically, because she's told us nothing, right? She can basically tell us in book 2 that Brynn knew everything at any time. So when she seems to be shocked, we see her as like, gasp, Acker can see into my mind. Do you remember that scene where she's like suddenly like, ooh, we're fucked, right? Guarantee that's gonna be a lie, and she's known that all along. So the author can argue, even though we're in first person and we're seeing her thoughts, she was performing those thoughts for Acker, who could read her mind. There are just so many stupid convenient things that this author will be able to use in book 2 to discount everything she wrote in book 1, even with like, did she know that Messer was the bird? I'm pretty sure she did. So like the way that she answers a couple questions, the only answer I could give is no. So she doesn't say no. She says the answer I give is no. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's just, there are quite a few stories that do this, like where you kind of have to read things a second time because that twist at the end was like, oh my God, all these things were hidden from us. This is an example of one that just isn't good. I really hate this trend of protagonists doing a bunch of stuff off the page. We saw that in the Crescent City series so badly. SJM like could not put a plot together to save her life, especially for Crescent City, which you can watch those plot summaries. They're unhinged. What goes down? Unhinged. But throughout the book, the main character, oh my God, is her name Bree? Crazy. She's also a redhead, by the way. The main character will just pop up and be like, surprise, I actually knew this stuff all along and I saved the day without you seeing any of it. So the emotional payoff is not there. Editing Cari here, I forgot to also mention, remember in the beginning when he makes a blood oath about how he's not allowed to tell Jovi her true identity? He does when they're escaping the jail cell. So if this turns around and she is not who she says she is, right? Because remember, in her visions, she has blonde hair. Messer thinks that she has blue eyes. She has written so many weird overlapping mistakes. She can change anything because she didn't write a solid enough plot to actually have the twist be meaningful. I'm done ranting. You can talk about it in the comments. Tell me why you think it's okay. I'm bummed. I'm tired. I'm interested to see in what happens when this becomes traditionally published. Yeah, that's Metal Slinger, the bane of my existence for the past month. And now I'm free of it. And I'm sorry, I'm just heated. If we were to like, if this was a conversation that like I was actually talking to one person and we could like converse back and forth, I would probably be less heated, but I am standing alone in my room with a microphone. So all of my emotions are turned up. And like I said, my feet hurt from standing here for hours. So yes, I'm going to leave you here. Let's continue this in the comments. I'm not trying to shame anyone who enjoyed this book. I'm just trying to ask us to please champion books with great writing. So let me know your thoughts as my throat gives out on. And I will see you in the next one. If you're going to talk about the other book that I mentioned that has a twist, please give a spoiler warning. Don't put the book title. Just say spoiler for other book, ... And we can talk about that book too, because, ooh, that was my first experience with a plot like this and that pissed me off. All right. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'm going to shut up now. Glad that this is out of my system. Again, halfway through, I regret making this, but sunken cost. I'll see you next time. Okay? The Mortal Instruments will be finished in 2025. Okay?